Chapter 3033. Kill. Lin Sun rushed up violently, and the five Tao bodies were all dazzling, attacking together with himself. Boom! At the moment when the fierce battle broke out, Lin Sun and the five Tao bodies were shaken back dozens of feet, and their auras were tumbling. With his current combat power, it was not too difficult for him to kill an Eternal Realms Dharma image. But when facing the suppression of the 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images, it was obviously a little difficult. Even if he had used his cultivation to the extreme, he was still shaken by such a siege. Xian Failing's heart tightened. Ji looked as calm as before, but her clothes were fluttering and her aura was flowing. Obviously, she was ready. In the distance, Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and others breathed a sigh of relief, but they could not help but feel shocked. There was no one below to kill, not to mention a serious injury. The 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images only shook Lin Sun back. When witnessing this scene, who could not be shocked by Lin Sun's combat power? Who dared to believe that this was the power of a young man in transcendent realm great perfection? Boom! The sky collapsed, and all things withered. After the 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images attacked, they did not intend to give Lin Sun any chance to breathe, each more powerful than the other. Some controlled the divine whip of order, and the golden light of law whipped the world. Some controlled the wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, which evolved into the eternal truth and raged the world. Some used the sword Qi, and each sword imprinted with the ultimacy could collapse the sky and cross the sun and the moon. There were also strong axe shadows, mysterious saber Qi, bright spear lights, domineering spear shadows, and so on, all of which could be called the strongest in the world. If it were someone else, he would have been killed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun and his five Tao bodies were besieged. Boom! The sound of Tao was like thunder in the ninth heaven, and the destructive fluctuations of the battle spread and raged. The scene of the battle shocked everyone present and made them break out in a cold sweat. It was no exaggeration to say that if such a battle took place in the outside world, it would destroy countless mountains, rivers, and cities, and even the origin of a big world. And it was in this siege that Lin Sun felt unprecedented pressure. Even if his combat power was against the natural order, even if his immortal law had reached the point where he could compete with the power of the divine level order. However, he was only in the transcendent realm. In the face of the encirclement of the wills and dharma forms of the eternal realm experts, it was not as easy as when he dealt with Wu Huanjun. This scene was also seen by the people outside the battlefield, especially Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others. They didn't dare imagine how terrifying his might would be if a young man like Lin Sun, who possessed the potential to become an eternal exalt, was allowed to attain eternity. At that time, not to mention the ancestral halls of the witchcraft sect and the Zen sect, even the eternal gods of the ninth heaven are destined to be unable to eat and sleep in peace. Fortunately, Lin Sun was already tied up and showed signs of being in a terrible state, causing Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others to feel a wave of relief. Be careful of Xian Failing. Yuan Church must have many trump cards that they haven't used yet. Besides, they won't just watch Lin Sun be killed. Tu Muhan quickly transmitted his voice. At this time, who else can save Lin Sun except for the Eternal Realm original body? With the current foundation of Yuan Church, at most, they can only send out a few more Eternal Realm wills and Dharma forms. This is destined to be unable to change the situation of the battle. Ji Kong's expression was calm and indifferent. What's more, apart from these, does Brother Tu have any other trump cards? Tu Muhan's eyes flickered. He said, "We're in the same boat. After all, we're going to deal with the entire Yuan Church. If we don't make sufficient preparations, how can we shake its foundation?" While they were talking, there was suddenly a shocking change in the distant battlefield. Lin Sun, who had been suppressed for a long time, used the Gate of Exile at this moment. Boom! A huge space-time crack appeared in the sky. The space-time door with a range of thousands of feet covered the ground, producing a frightening, devouring aura. In an instant, the eternal realm wills and dharma forms were slightly stagnant. Their expressions were solemn, but they didn't panic. Tut! A Dharma form that looked like an old man shouted and took out a bloody animal skin flag, which rose into the sky. Bursts of blood-red light emerged from the animal skin flag, and the mysterious power of time manifested, blocking the devouring power of the gate of exile. The iron-blood, chaotic world flag. Xian Feiling's pupil shrank. This was one of the most precious treasures of the witch cult, a real, eternal Tao weapon with terrifying power. It was said that when this flag was unfolded, its power could instantly cover a big world and easily refine the rules of the world. At the same time, a mighty Brahma light emerged, and a golden Buddhist scripture spread out in the void. Countless obscure and mysterious Sanskrit shone brightly, deducing the eternal essence, and blocked the power of the gate of exile. The 8 groups of Mahasutra. This was the most precious treasure of the Zen sect. It was said that it was refined by an eternal realm with the rules of Buddhism. The scripture was divided into 8 parts, each of which was branded with a supreme essence. It could control wind, thunder, earth, fire, and time. Compared with the iron blood chaotic world flag, this treasure was absolutely not inferior. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun's gate of exile was blocked by 2 eternal Tao weapons, and the 14 eternal realm Dharma forms dissolved Lin Sun's killing move safely. This scene made Xian Feiling's heart skip a beat. He knew very well that Lin Sun did not have a treasure like the eternal Tao weapon. How could he fight with those well-prepared old guys? Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly, and without hesitation, he shrunk the gate of exile into a shadow and condensed it on the abyssal sword cauldron. Rumble, all kinds of killing power rushed towards Lin Sun, but as soon as they arrived in front of him, they were all swallowed up by the abyssal sword cauldron, disappearing like a clay ox in the sea. This strange scene stunned the eternal realm Dharma forms, as if they could not believe it. This was the magical effect of the Gate of Exile. With its power attached to the abyssal sword cauldron, all the attacking power was swallowed into the world of exile. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers rushed forward. Kill! The eternal realm Dharma forms joined forces to attack. But apart from the iron blood flag of chaos and the 8 groups of Mahasutra that could shake the abyssal sword cauldron, all other attacks were swallowed up by the Gate of Exile. In other words, the abyssal sword cauldron floating above Lin Sun's head at this moment, in addition to fighting against the power of the 2 eternal Tao weapons, other people's killing means would be swallowed up by the Gate of Exile without him having to fight against them. This undoubtedly reduced the pressure on him. It seemed that he was fighting against 14 Dharma forms, but in fact it was no different from fighting against 2. The only drawback was that compared to before, even though the Gate of Exile had shrunk countless times, its power was rapidly consumed because of the terrifying power it had to swallow. In the past, it could last for an hour, but now it could only last for a moment at most. But Lin Sun did not care. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he rushed out with all his strength and broke through the siege in an instant, launching an all-out attack on a Dharma form of witchcraft. This Dharma image was that of a man in a beast robe. His figure was imposing, and his combat strength was peerlessly ferocious. He controlled the energy of the laws that seemed like a divine whip of order, and every single strike he struck out caused the heavens and the earth to collapse. But at this moment, his attack was completely swallowed up by the abyssal sword cauldron. No matter how domineering the attack was, it posed no threat to Lin Sun at all. Crack! In just a few blinks of an eye, the man in the beast robe was smashed and dissipated into a rain of light. The other eternal realm Dharma forms were all shocked and could not believe their eyes. Damn it! How could this be? In the distance, Tu Mu and the other old monsters of witchcraft all changed their expressions. Before, Lin Sun was restrained and suppressed in every way, but now he had launched a counterattack. It was even to the extent that only those 2 eternal Tao armaments were capable of suppressing his attacks in the current battlefield. The abilities of the others would be completely devoured by him. This was too strange and terrible. Who could believe it? Xian Failing quietly released a secret talisman that he had prepared in his right hand in his sleeve. He was ready to take action, but obviously it was not needed for the time being. At the same time, Xian Failing noticed that Xia Ji's qi, which had accumulated to the extreme, was gradually easing. Obviously, she had planned to take action just like him. Boom! The battle was still breaking out. Losing a Dharma form of will made others change their strategy immediately. On the side of witchcraft, led by the Dharma form of will that controlled the Iron Blood banner of chaos, they attacked Lin Sun together. The same was true on the side of Zen sect. They used all their strength to control the 8 groups of Maha Sutra to attack Lin Sun. However, there were only 2 treasures. Although they were not afraid of the power of the Gate of Exile on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron, they did not pose a great threat to Lin Sun. Boom! However, good times did not last long. Before long, the power of the Gate of Exile on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron collapsed. At this moment, the Dharma forms of will seized the opportunity and attacked with all their strength without hesitation. They all realized that the forbidden magic Lin Sun used was not invincible. As long as they kept attacking, it would dissipate, and Lin Sun would have to consume a lot of energy to do so. Great! Tu Muhan and the others could not help but cry out. Their eyes lit up. What else could Lin Sun do to reverse the situation? Ji Kong and the others could not help but feel relieved. Fortunately, such a magic could not last for long. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Boom! However, at this moment, Lin Sun used the Gate of Exile again. The space-time portal with a range of thousands of meters instantly shrank into a shadow and was imprinted on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. As a result, except for the attacks of the 2 Eternal Tao weapons, all other attacks were swallowed up. But it was under such circumstances that an Eternal Realm Dharma form of Zen sect laughed and said, "Everyone, his chi activity has weakened by almost 30%. It is impossible for him to use this power continuously." His words made the others look much more relaxed. 30% of his physical strength could only be exchanged for a moment of magic power. This undoubtedly meant that with Lin Sun's cultivation, he could only use this method 3 times. However, Lin Sun did not seem to care about this at all. At this moment, he attacked brazenly and directly attacked the laughing Dharma form of will. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the leader of the Will of Sea. Thank you for your support and monthly votes since last night. Goldfish decided to end the Mid-Autumn Festival early. If nothing unexpected happened, she would add more chapters today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Chapter 3034. The one who laughed was an Eternal Realm Dharma form of the Zen sect. His Dharma name was Jiming. A long time ago, he had a world-shaking reputation. He had also discussed Tao with many Eternal Realm figures in the 9th heaven. Although his original body was no longer in the Zen sect, the Dharma form he had left behind was still extremely powerful. When Lin Sun attacked, he did not hesitate to use his strongest defensive means. Buzz! A layer of rippling golden light turned into a kasaya that covered his whole body, emitting dazzling eternal Brahman light. Hell kasaya. It could resist the power of rules. Boom! However, when Lin Sun and his doppelganger attacked, the terrifying power made Ji Ming tremble, and the Hell Kasaya shook violently. His face changed. How could he be so strong? Boom! Before he could react, an overwhelming barrage of attacks came right at him. During this time, the other Eternal Realm Dharma forms also attacked, but except for the power of the 2 Eternal Tao weapons, all other attacks were swallowed by the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. And just 2 Eternal Tao weapons could not do anything to Lin Sun. In a flash, Ji Ming suffered a serious impact, and his Dharma form showed traces of cracks. It was a ghastly sight. Boom! In the end, the Hell Kasaya that covered his body exploded, and the Dharma form that had created the Eternal Realm Dharma form was crushed into pieces and scattered like rain. Another Eternal Realm Dharma form had fallen. Lin Sun's overbearing and ferocious fighting posture made Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others shudder. In such a situation, Lin Sun could still kill two eternal realm Dharma forms. How could they remain calm when faced with such a heaven-defying power? But they could all see that Lin Sun's chi was not as strong as before. Obviously, because he had used his talent power twice in a row, his physical strength was greatly consumed. This meant that when the talent power he used this time dissipated, he was destined to be unable to fight again. On the battlefield, the Eternal Realm Dharma forms also noticed this and stepped up their attacks. Rumble, the world was in chaos. The vast infinite star scene no longer existed, and the battle became more and more intense. As the enemies expected, Lin Sun's Gate of Exile quickly collapsed and disappeared. But before they could rejoice, Lin Sun swallowed a drop of innate divine dew, and his almost depleted stamina was instantly restored to its peak state. Seeing such a shocking development, the Eternal Realm Dharma idols couldn't help but stare in shock and anger. How could this be? Tu Mahun and the others were dumbfounded, and they were so depressed that they almost coughed out a mouthful of blood. Originally, they thought that Lin Sun would be captured, but they did not expect that Lin Sun would have such a shocking change. There was a strange look in Xian Failing's eyes. Back then, he was the one who handed the 10 innate divine nectar to Lin Sun. Hence, he knew the reason why Lin Sun would have such a drastic change. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield changed again. Except for the two who wielded two eternal Tao weapons, the other eternal realm wills and Dharma images chose to defend instead of attacking. Moreover, he didn't give Lin any chance to entangle and attack at all. Clearly, they knew that as long as Lin Sun used the Banished Gate again, they who did not have an eternal Tao soldier would not have any chance to attack Lin Sun. Kill. The one who wielded the Iron Blood Chaotic World flag was called Shui Rong, and the one who wielded the 8 sections of Mahasutra was called Xing Dian. The two became the main fighting force, and they attacked Lin Sun with all their might. But to everyone's surprise, Lin Sun did not use the Banished Gate again, because the old guys had already seen through the mysteries of this innate divine ability. If he wanted to use it again, he would have to spend a lot of effort. Seeing that Lin Sun did not use the Banished Gate, the other Eternal Realm wills and Dharma images naturally did not miss the opportunity to attack. They surrounded him and attacked with all their might. They had all made up their minds. Once Lin Sun used the forbidden innate divine ability, they would retreat far away and defend instead of attacking. They did not believe that they could not defeat him under such a siege. However, their plan was doomed to fail. Seeing the eternal realm wills and Dharma images rushing towards him, Lin Sun took a deep breath and, with a clang, held the Tao sword in his hand. Swish! The sword swept out, ignoring the shackles of space and tearing through the power of laws. The sword chi spread out like a dreamy and magnificent ripple. It was ethereal, unfathomable, and unbelievably fast. There was no murderous aura at all, but when they sensed the sword chi, an indescribable chill surged in everyone's hearts. It was like the light of tribulation from the heavens. Bang! The Tao technique unleashed by one of the ancients dissipated soundlessly when it came into contact with the sword chi. Bang! Bang! After that, the various attacks of the other seniors were crushed like bubbles as soon as they came into contact with the sword chi. Only 2 Eternal Tao weapons managed to block the sword chi, but they also produced a violent buzzing sound, causing Shui Rong and Xing Dian's pupils to shrink. No! Suddenly, an eternal realm wills and Dharma image cried out in shock and anger. He stretched out his hand and slapped out with the intention of blocking that strand of sword chi. But who would have imagined that the sword chi would instead easily slash apart the force of his palm, and its remaining momentum didn't reduce in the slightest as it slashed onto his hand. Suddenly, the sword chi spread in reverse time, and the power it released cut off the Taoism of his Dharma image. The Dharma image was condensed by the power of the Great Way. Now that it was cut off, it was like a bubble, and it turned into a rain of light and vanished. All the people present were shocked by this strange and unpredictable scene. The Blade of Time, it's the forbidden innate divine ability that the Skyspan Lord mastered. Tu Muhan roared in rage, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The gate of exile that Lin Sun had displayed before had caught them off guard. Now the power of the Blade of Time had reappeared in the world, and it made their faces change completely. Swish, swish, swish. Lin Sun didn't delay at all. He controlled the Taoist sword and attacked with all his strength with the 5 Taoist bodies. Every sword strike was like an illusory flowing light, crisscrossing and mysterious. In the past 18 years, he had thoroughly understood the mystery of the Blade of Time, and he had already mastered the power of this magic to the peak. In short, the power of the Blade of Time was like that of a Taoist soldier, which could be used for a quarter of an hour. Anyone who was swept by it would be reversed time and deprived of his Taoism. Even Taoist magic and treasures would be reversed to their original form by the power of time. For example, if a saber was swept by it, it would be reversed to the embryo state before it was refined, which could be called a forbidden power. Boom! The battle began to become fierce. No one had expected that Lin Sun had mastered so many forbidden skills. In the following time, the sword chi flashed across the battlefield. From time to time, the eternal realm wills and Dharma images were hit, and then they collapsed and disappeared in an instant. In a flash, another 4 eternal realm wills and Dharma images disappeared. Why is this happening? Why? The strange scenes irritated Tu Muhan and the others to the point their eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and their pupils were bloodshot. They couldn't imagine how the battle could develop to such an extent. A gloomy and livid expression appeared between the brows of Ji Kong and the other seniors of the Zen sect, and their Zen hearts that were firm like a rock were shaken and roiled. Any existence that had stepped into the eternal realm could resist the attack of the power of time. Otherwise, they couldn't be called eternal at all. But obviously, the Blade of Time that Lin Sun utilized was different. It was a forbidden magic that could reverse time and cut off one's Taoism. It was far from something that could be compared to the simple power of time. Boom! In next to no time, another Dharma image dissipated like a bubble, and only 6 eternal realm wills and Dharma images were left on the battlefield. Only then did Lin Sun's Blade of Time collapse and disappear. He took a deep breath and released the Blade of Time again. Witnessing this scene, the remaining 6 eternal realm wills and Dharma images looked gloomy and felt that it was extremely difficult. They had mobilized 14 Dharma images and 2 eternal Tao soldiers, but they still couldn't suppress a young, transcendent realm like Lin Sun. Instead, he killed 8 of them one after another. This cruel reality also gave them a heavy blow. Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others never expected this result. This time, their 2 ancestral halls had joined forces to deal with Yuan's sect, and they were well prepared. But now, they were blocked by Lin Sun in the infinite star sea before they could even enter the Yuan realm. Moreover, up until now, they had lost a total of 9 eternal realm wills, including Wu Huanjin's Dharma image. And looking at Yuan's sect side, so far, not a single soldier had been injured. If this continues, it will really not be worth it. Tu Muhan's voice was hoarse and low, and his eyes were flashing with crazy, killing intent. Everyone could see that if this situation continued, more and more eternal realm wills and Dharma images would be destroyed by Lin Sun. In that case, I'll just use my trump card. Ji Kong took a deep breath and seemed to have made a decision. Okay. Tu Muhan gritted his teeth and raised his hand to sacrifice a beast bone necklace. At the same time, he recited an obscure and strange spell. Buzz! The beast bone necklace glowed, and the world suddenly shook violently. Several eternal realm wills and Dharma images of witchcraft that were fighting fiercely with Lin Sun all trembled, and an unconcealable fanaticism appeared on their faces. At the same time, Lin Sun's pupils shrank. Boom! The sound of Tao, like the beginning of chaos, resounded, and the beast bone necklace exploded. Immediately after, the turbulent aura of chaos spread like a landslide and a tsunami. In the aura of chaos, a thin, tall figure condensed. At that moment, It was like a supreme ruler who had been silent for thousands of years had awakened. An indescribably terrifying pressure spread to the 9 heavens and 10 earths, oppressing everyone to breathe. Swish! Lin Sun withdrew immediately. He felt a piercing sense of danger, as if a sharp edge was pressed against his whole body, making his hair stand on end. At the same time, Tumhun and the other old monsters of the witchcraft cult bowed, as if they were humble disciples and successors. They said respectfully, "Ancestors' Dharma image, please come to the world." More updates. Chapter 30-35. The world was dead silent. The 6 Eternal Realm experts who had fought fiercely with Lin Sun before all retreated with relief. They stared at the tall, skinny figure that had appeared out of nowhere. Shock and even reverence filled their faces. It was also an Eternal Realm expert, but it was much stronger than them. The aura of chaos permeated the world, making the collapsed and turbulent void return to a kind of extreme calmness, as if it had surrendered. "Welcome to the world, Patriarch. Welcome to the world, Patriarch." Their voices drifted between heaven and earth, adding a shocking power to people's hearts. Tumahan and the other old fogies had lived for countless years, held the great power of the witchcraft cult, and were admired by hundreds of millions of people. But at this time, they all bowed respectfully to the Patriarch. Anyone who saw this scene would be shocked. The Patriarch of the witchcraft cult, Heaven Wizard. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed, and his heart was in turmoil. He had heard from Yin Ji that the founder of the witchcraft cult was called Heaven Wizard, who had walked through many eras and successfully passed through the Great Silence Fatality Tribulation many times. The Eternal Night Emperor, the original body of Summer Solstice, had to hide in the flowing light forbidden area because of the Great Silence Fatality Tribulation. There was no doubt that Heaven Wizard was even more terrifying than the Eternal Night Emperor. Although it was only a Dharma idol of Heaven Wizard's will, Lin Sun felt a fatal threat. Its power was far greater than the Dharma idols of the Eternal Realm present. If they were to really compare, it would be like the difference between clouds and mud. At this time, Tu Muhan was transmitting his voice to the image of Heaven Wizard. Swish! Xian Failing appeared in front of Lin Sun and said, "It's time to take action. Leave the rest to me." He looked solemn, but he didn't show any panic. This should be their biggest trump card. Yi Zichen muttered. Lin Sun's eyes flickered. He had expected that since the witchcraft cult and the Zen cult had come this time, they must have prepared enough power to threaten the foundation of the Yuan cult. The previous Eternal Realm Dharma idols were far from being able to do this. Now, when Lin Sun saw the manifestation of Heaven Wizard, the founder of witchcraft, he understood that this was the biggest trump card of witchcraft's ancestral court. Since the witchcraft cult had sent out such a force, how could the Zen cult not be prepared? As expected, as soon as Lin Sun thought of this, there was a burst of peaceful and solemn Sanskrit chanting between heaven and earth. Immediately after, flowers fell from the sky, golden lotuses appeared on the ground, birds soared, and white elephants trumpeted. The dense and grand Buddha's aura was like a rain of light that illuminated the world. Rumble! A dignified and imposing figure appeared in the field. His forehead was bright and clean, and he looked like a young man. He stood barefoot on an auspicious cloud, and his handsome face was filled with holy and ethereal light. A Brahman light wheel appeared behind him, showing the image of the pure land of ultimate bliss. Along with his appearance, Ji Kong and the others pressed their palms together, cupped their fists, bowed, and called out the name of Buddha, the avatar of Shi, the founder of the Dhyana sect. Xian Fei Ling's expression suddenly became unprecedentedly dignified, his brows furrowed. Sure, he was a supreme giant who had walked through many eras before ancient times, overlooking the changes of the world, and a mythical figure who had established the Zen cult with his own hands. At this moment, with his appearance, the horrible power also filled the world, making those old monsters of the Zen cult show a pious expression. Lin Sun felt depressed in his heart, and his face was solemn. He grasped Xia Ji's hand and transmitted his voice to her, If a battle breaks out later, don't act without permission in any case. Xia, Ji nodded. At this moment, Xian Fei Ling did not hesitate to take out a flying sword. The flying sword rotated in the void, and then suddenly stopped. Circles of obscure power rippled out from the sword edge and spread out. Then, a chubby figure stood up from the sword chi. He was dressed in a white robe, with snow-white hair and a kind face, but his body was very fat. The tip of his nose was red, and there was a huge purple-gold gourd hanging around his waist. With his appearance, the flying sword gradually dimmed, and then turned into powder and dissipated. Patriarch, you can only come forward to deal with today's situation. Xian Fei Ling sighed softly, looking a little ashamed. Lin Sun was stunned. This fat old man with white hair and beard was actually Yuan Shu, the founder of Yuan sect? Not only him, but Tu Mu Hun, Ji Kong, and others were also stunned. It seemed that they didn't expect that the patriarch of Yuan sect would be like this. The chubby Yuan sect's patriarch patted the purple gold gourd on his waist and said casually, "What's there to be ashamed of? It's already very impressive to be able to force the heavenly magus and old bald donkey sure to show their dharma. Okay?" His voice was very loud, like thunder on the ground, making people's eardrums buzz. Yuan Shu, if you were alone, you can't stop today's disaster. In the distance, the figure of Heavenly Wizard was thin and tall, surrounded by chaotic chi. He put his hands behind his back, and his voice was indifferent and cold, like a sword clanging. "It's just 1 against 2, Yuan Shu said nonchalantly. "It's not like we haven't fought before. But today is different from the past." Sure, the patriarch of Zen's sect looked peaceful. Beihai proves the eternal way. Tai Xian is trapped in the mysterious realm, and the divine order of Yuan sect is suppressed by the great disaster. Even if you can resist the two of us, once the aftermath of the battle rushes into Yuan sect, there will be countless casualties, and you Beihai's road to proving the Tao will be affected. With that, he looked at Lin Sun. This boy is not the successor of Yuan's sect, but the disciple of Beauty. Is it worth it to destroy the foundation of Yuan's sect for him? At this moment, there was no room for others to interrupt. The confrontation between the 3 patriarch-level figures, even in the 9th heaven, there were not many people who could interrupt. Yuan Shu touched his snow-white beard and said with emotion, "How many years has it been? You are too hypocritical. If you want to threaten, just say it. Why do you have to put on a hypocritical face?" Shi frowned and said, "At present, there is only Tai Xian in Yuan's sect. If he takes action, there will be someone to deal with him. If he suffers the backlash of the rules of heaven and earth, I am afraid that he will not survive the disaster that will come in 1,000 years. For the successor of Beauty, is it worth it?" He repeated this sentence again. The implication was that Yuan sect was Yuan sect after all, not Fangsun Mountain. How stupid it was to destroy the foundation of the ancestral court to protect a successor of Fangsun Mountain. Not far away, Tian Wu snorted coldly, and his voice was thunderous. "Stop being so fussy. Let's attack together. Let's see if old Yuan Shu can stop us." His aura was surging, filling the world with a murderous aura. Yuan Shu clapped his hands and laughed. "In the end, I still admire old man Tian Wu more. He is straightforward and never talks nonsense." Shi sighed softly and said, "It seems that today's matter will not end well." Boom! His Dharmakaya was solemn, and the Brahma light between heaven and earth roared. Under the terrifying pressure, whether it was Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, Lin Sun, Xian Failing, or the others, they all stiffened. They felt an unprecedented pressure and a sense of suffocation. Yuan Shu clapped his hands and suddenly straightened his back. An incomparably mighty aura spread out. His snow-white hair fluttered, and his big sleeves fluttered. He said, Come. Let's fight to our heart's content. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The heavenly shaman sneered and was about to attack. "Wait, how can I miss out on this fun?" Suddenly, a long howl resounded from extremely far away. When the voice resounded, it was still far away in the horizon. Yet when it finished resounding through the air, A thin figure had appeared out of thin air and forcefully entered the battlefield. This person wore a dirty Taoist robe, and a wooden hairpin was inserted into his grayish-white hair, which was coiled into a loose Taoist bun. He wore a pair of straw sandals, and a smile hung on his thin face. As soon as he appeared, his thin figure emanated a clear glow of the Grand Tao that shot through the heavens and the earth, and it forcefully pushed aside the imposing auras of the other three founding ancestors. The founder of the numinous sect, Serene. Xian Failing was surprised and slightly excited. He seemed to have never imagined that the Spirit Church would not hesitate to dispatch the will image of the founding ancestor to assist them under such circumstances. Void invisibility. Lin Sun couldn't help but be visibly moved. This was similarly a big shot that had walked through numerous eras a very long time ago, and his resources and reserves were unimaginably terrifying. Dizzy? One kiss you poke, play handsome Yuanshu asked with a smile. If I didn't come, I'm afraid your Dharma image would have been beaten to death. Void invisibility snorted coldly, but there was still a smile on his face. Now, it's a 2-on-2 situation. What do you think are the odds of winning? Yuanshu looked at Heavenly Shaman and Sure in the distance with a smile. However, Heavenly Shaman's expression was cold, and his words were as frightening as the edge of a sword. 100%. 100%. Yuanshu looked at Sure, the founder of a Zen sect. After all, it's just a Dharma image. So what if it dies here? Sure put his palms together, and his face was calm. Then let's fight. Void invisibility rolled up his sleeves and pointed at Sure. I'll fight with this old bald donkey. I'll leave Heavenly Shaman to you. As he spoke, he directly punched out from a distance. Boom! This punch was like an eternal river, breaking free from the shackles of time and space, above the cage of heaven and earth. It was so tyrannical that it made people feel desperate. Anyone who saw it would feel as insignificant as a speck of dust. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. They were both eternal realm wills and Dharma idols, but the power of Serene, the founder of a sect, had obviously reached an unimaginable level, so strong that Lin Sun couldn't even muster the slightest thought of resisting. Sure uttered a Buddhist chant, and his expression was solemn and calm. Boom! His frock fluttered, and a burst of Buddhist light condensed into a tiny grain of sand. Silently, it dissolved Void Invisibility's punch. A grain of sand is a world. All living beings see it, but don't know how big it is. This move of the old bald donkey is really amazing. Void Invisibility sighed with emotion. Having said that, he waved his palm and fingers, and the world split like a canvas. A clear light was born from the chaos, and suddenly turned into an ethereal sword intent, drawing out the eternal power. At this instant, eternal and supreme divine might covered the heavens and the earth, causing the space, time, light, and shadows here to show signs of warping and collapsing. Lin Sun, Xian Failing, Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others who were watching the battle from a distance all felt extremely distant. It was as if the four founders were in front of them, but they had already stood in the endless void, giving people a sense of untouchable loftiness. It was terrifying. Chapter 3036. Besides feeling shocked, Lin Sun and the others also noticed that the power released by the four patriarchs, whether they were confronting or fighting, had no effect on outsiders like them. Without a doubt, it was to protect them. Otherwise, it would be an unbearable disaster for Lin Sun, Xian Failing, Tu Muhan, and Ji Kong. On the battlefield, a sword essence surged and drew out the eternal power. Creation is divine. Chaos gives birth to mystery. I can see that you're very powerful. Sure narrowed his eyes. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand in the void, and his fingers bloomed like a lotus. Suddenly, billions of Buddha's light surged out, as if it could illuminate the eternal darkness and deliver all living beings from suffering. Boom! At that moment, the sword essence and the Buddha's light fought, overturning the world and destroying the heavens. When the terrifying aftermath of the battle spread out, countless terrifying and mysterious phenomena appeared. Lin Sun and the others felt a stabbing pain in their eyes. That power was too supreme, above the rules of the Great Tao. It wasn't something they could understand. Even the eternal realm's Dharma images trembled in fear. There was a difference in the eternal realm. Passing the Great Desolation Tribulation was a dividing line. There were very few eternal realm existences in the world, and those who could pass the Great Desolation Tribulation were all peerless eternal realm experts. And the patriarchs of the four ancestral halls had all passed the Great Desolation Tribulation many times. Even though they were only using their Dharma images, the power they possessed was far beyond that of an ordinary eternal realm expert. Ha again! The faint laughter of the spirit sex founding ancestor resounded in the battlefield, and then countless strands of sword insight surged into appearance like a vast and ancient river. It swept through the restraints of time and space, and it seemed peerlessly powerful. The Zen sect's patriarch Shi's expression was calm, as usual. His body was covered in Buddha's light. When he walked, countless Buddhist kingdoms appeared, and billions of living beings chanted devoutly. The power and secret techniques he used in the fierce battle with Su Yin were completely beyond everyone's imagination. It was beyond the scope of the great Tao in the secular sense. Kill! All of a sudden, the witchcraft cult's grandmaster, Heaven Wizard, made his move as well. The Black Eternal Order turned into a blinding light that rose from his slender figure. A terrifying bloodlust and murderous aura rushed out, accompanied by the Heaven Wizard's palm. With a loud boom, it seemed as if the chaos was split apart. I knew you couldn't wait to get beaten up. Yuan Shu mumbled to himself. His snow-white hair and beard fluttered in the wind as he waved his sleeves. Boom! The outline of a vast world appeared and suppressed the oncoming Heaven Wizard. It was as if Yuan Shu had lifted up the whole world and smashed it at Heaven Wizard. Lin Sun was dumbfounded by the incredible scene. Looking at Xian Fei Ling, Tu Mu Han, and the others, their expressions were filled with shock as well. A battle of this level, not to mention them. Even in the ninth heaven, it's rare to see such a scene. Rumble, rumble, the battle between the four founding ancestors seemed as if it was occurring far away in the nine heavens. Yet the strength they utilized could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. It was as if the four true rulers of the heavens were colliding. At the same time, in the sky above the entire seventh heaven, countless unimaginable destructive phenomena appeared. There were suns, moons, and stars falling, mountains of corpses and seas of blood appearing, mighty Sanskrit chants resounding, and thunderous sword cries exploding. Hundreds of millions of living beings scattered across the major areas of the seventh heaven, regardless of their cultivation level, felt fear from the bottom of their hearts at this moment. This kind of phenomenon was simply unheard of. In the first to sixth heaven, there were also many incredible disaster phenomena. Countless cultivators discovered that the aura of the great Tao between heaven and earth had become chaotic and turbulent, unable to be clearly sensed. Even the power of the great Tao between heaven and earth was impacted, tumbling endlessly. No one knew the reason for this, but when all of this happened, every cultivator felt that a great disaster was about to befall them, and they felt a sense of panic and uneasiness. And in the eighth heaven, countless cries of alarm rang out in the places where the 10 immortal giants were located. In other words, when the founding ancestors of the four great ancestral halls fought, just the power of their will and Dharma idol could affect many heavens in the eternal world. This was undoubtedly terrifying. The primordial realm. The terrifying light of calamity was like the Milky Way of the nine heavens, pouring down with a rumble, bombarding Ubehai, who was in the midst of transcending the tribulation. His figure was submerged in the blazing light of calamity, and he couldn't be seen anymore. Yen Ji, who had been guarding in the distance, looked as if he was facing a great enemy. His expression was grave. However, what worried him even more was the battle outside the Yuan sect. Now, the power of the divine level order covering the primordial realm was suppressed by the eternal Great Tribulation, and it was as if it had lost all its power. Ji clearly sensed that in the infinite star sea, the most terrifying battle of the founding ancestors was erupting. Once the aftermath of such a battle spread and hit the primordial realm, the entire primordial realm would most likely be destroyed and reduced to ruins. This was equivalent to destroying the foothold of the Yuan sect. Compared to these, what worried Ji even more was that with the current power of the Yuan sect, once such a disaster happened, it would be almost impossible to stop it. At that time, it would not only be the primordial realm that would be destroyed, but the lives of everyone in the Yuan sect would also be seriously threatened. Old you, you just transcended the tribulation. Why did you cause such a big commotion? Ji laughed bitterly in his heart. Then, his eyes swept far away, and his expression was dignified. Everyone, if that disaster rushes into the primordial realm in the next period of time, what you have to do is head to the Tian Yuan mystic realm as soon as possible. The expressions of Dugi Yong, Feng Daoping, Yuan Wutian, and the other deputy pavilion masters were uncertain. How could they not know that the current situation was extremely dangerous? It could be said that since the establishment of the Yuan sect until now, such a disaster had never occurred, and it had already seriously threatened the foundation of the entire Yuan sect. We are willing to defend the primordial realm with our lives, Dugi Yong said calmly. If the primordial realm is destroyed, there is still a chance to rebuild it in the future. If everyone dies, the Yuan sect will really be finished, Ji said coldly. Everyone in the sect has been settled in the Tian Yuan mystic realm. Once the situation is not right, only all of you can move together to have a chance to bring them away. So all of you must live. Ji took a deep breath, and his eyes were resolute. I will guard the primordial realm. Dugi Yong, Feng Daoping, and the rest were silent, and they were resentful and sorrowful. Yu Beihai was going through a trial. It was dangerous and intense, and it was impossible for him to succeed in a short period of time. Outside the primordial realm, there was an unprecedented calamity that was about to break out. Under such circumstances, even though they were deputy pavilion masters and possessed transcendent realm great perfection cultivation, they couldn't be of much help. Ji is right. All of you can head to the Tian Yuan mystic realm now. Suddenly, a clear and calm voice was heard. Taishian Pavilion Master. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Old man Taishian, are you coming out of seclusion? If that's the case, won't all the effort you put into seclusion be wasted? Ji frowned. If the primordial realm cannot be protected, what's the point of talking about this? There's no need to say more. If necessary, even if I have to destroy my cultivation, I will ensure the Yuan sect's peace. Taishuan's voice was calm, but had an unquestionable determination. Infinite Star Sea. The battle was getting more and more intense. Yuan Shu and Shuyin knew that if they showed any signs of weakness, the aftermath of this battle would definitely spread to the primordial realm. Therefore, they didn't hold back. Rumble, the battlefield was in chaos, enough to make the heavens tremble. Lin Sun frowned. This battle seemed to be evenly matched, but it was already a very unfavorable situation for the Yuan sect. What should he do? Lin Sun felt a little depressed. So what if he was invincible on the immortal path? In the end, it was not of any use. At this moment, Xian Failing suddenly transmitted his voice. If the situation is bad, you and I will retreat to the primordial realm first. Lin Sun's heart sank. Obviously, even Xian Failing realized the seriousness of the situation and prepared for the worst. Lin Sun felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. After all, this catastrophe was caused by him. If Yuan's sect hadn't been giving him protection, how could they have been attacked by the witchcraft and Zen sect? Senior, I won't retreat. Lin Sun's black eyes were firm. What the enemy wanted to destroy was him, the successor of Mountain of Mind and Heart. They wanted to take away the divine-level order power in his hands. Only if he stayed, this catastrophe wouldn't have a fatal impact on the Yuan sect. Xian Failing frowned, as if he had guessed Lin Sun's thoughts. But just as he was about to say something, in the distance, Ji Kong suddenly let out a voice. Fellow Taoists of the ninth heaven, if you don't take action now, when will you? Boom! In the void far away, there was an earth-shattering roar. Immediately afterward, terrifying figures walked out of the void one after another, each with a terrifying aura that made the world tremble. There were 5 of them. They were obviously trying their best to suppress their aura, but when they appeared, they still caused great turbulence in the rules of heaven and earth. All of a sudden, Xian Feiling's face changed completely. He gritted his teeth and said, 5 eternal realm. The 5 eternal gods of the 9th heaven are going to go all out against our Yuan sect. Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. Eternal realm. The 5 that appeared at this moment were not Dharma images, but the true bodies of the eternal realm. At this moment, Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and other old monsters' eyelids twitched fiercely. They had long known that the 9th heaven would send people to participate in this action. However, even they didn't expect that the 9th heaven would send 5 eternal realm existences at once. All of them were caught off guard by this. There was no doubt that this was a big variable. Boom! At this moment, the figures of the 4 patriarchs, who were fighting fiercely, suddenly dispersed and chose to stop at the same time. Obviously, they also noticed the appearance of the 5 eternal realm existences and realized the change in the situation. Old Yuan Shu, I'm afraid your Yuan sect is finished today, Heavenly Wizard said coldly. Yuan Shu and Shuyin both had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their eyes looked at the 5 figures that were walking in the distance, and their expressions were uncertain. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the leader of Giadaleo. The common area was very lively, and there were many people criticizing the goldfish. Although it affected the mood, I will continue to update tonight. Chapter 30-37. With the arrival of the 5 Eternal Realm experts, the atmosphere between heaven and earth became more and more oppressive. We came uninvited. If we disturbed you, please forgive us. An old man in a yellow robe was the first to arrive, and then he bowed to the will of the 4 ancestors. In terms of seniority, the 4 of you are the sages on the eternal path. Although you are not here in person, you are still worthy of my admiration. If you really admire us, you don't have to come here to seek trouble. Yuan Shu had been smiling before. Even in the face of the confrontation between Sky Wizard and Sure, his expression didn't change. But at this moment, his face looked very gloomy. The yellow-robed old man smiled slightly and said, if the senior is willing to take a step back and hand over the successor of the Heart Mountain named Lin Sun, I will leave immediately. Asking for people as soon as you arrived, it seems that your Minamoto clan really hates the Fongsuan Mountain to the bone. Could it be that the owner of the Fongsuan Mountain smashed your door in the 9th heaven? Su Yin sneered. The yellow-robed old man frowned and said, I respect the senior as a sage, but if the senior doesn't respect himself, then I can't be polite anymore. Oh, why don't you try? Su Yin smiled. Come on, let's do it. Even if I can't kill you, it's not a problem to break a few pieces of your eternal Tao foundation. The yellow-robed old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Sure. Sure said calmly, with this poor monk here, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to do this. On the contrary, once the war starts, these 5 people from the 9th heaven can take the opportunity to attack the Yuan sect. Everyone should know what the consequences will be. These words caused the atmosphere in the surroundings to become even more oppressive and confrontational. At this time, Lin Sun has already learned the identity of the 5 Eternal Realm experts from Xian Feiling. They are 4 men and 1 woman. They are from the Eternal God Clan, Song Clan, Taihao Clan, Panwu Clan, and Zhu Clan. The yellow-robed old man who spoke before is an Eternal Realm existence of the Genji Clan, named Yuan Feihu. The other 3 men and 1 woman are Tsang Xiongtu, Panwu Xingyin, Zhu Baihai, and Taihao Hanwei. Among them, Lin Sun has seen Taihao Hanwei before. When he was in the 6th heaven, he once killed one of his Dharma images. When these Eternal Realm experts arrived, they restrained their auras to the extreme. Obviously, they were afraid of triggering a backlash from the rules of heaven and earth. But everyone knew that since they dared to appear here, they definitely didn't care about all this. Seeing this scene, Lin Sun felt more and more suffocated. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the determination of these enemies. On the surface, they dispatched a group of transcendent realm antiques with many eternal realms Dharma images. However, their real trump card was the Dharma images of the two founders, which are the 5 eternal realm existences from the ninth heaven domain. It could be said that the current situation was completely disadvantageous to the Yuan sect. Anyone who saw such a scene would probably feel helpless and despair. The choice is in your Yuan church's hands. We came here for Feng Siyuan's successor, Lin Sun. If you take a step back, your Yuan church will be safe. The ancestral master of the witchcraft cult, Heaven Shaman, spoke with a cold tone. Take a step back? Yuan Chu's expression was cold. If I take this step back, what's the point of me living? Then let's fight. Heaven Shaman was aggressive. Sure said calmly. From the looks of it, Yuan Church is destined to be removed from the world today. What a pity. Yuan Church and Feng Siyuan are in cahoots with each other. Naturally, they can no longer exist in the world. The yellow-robed elder, Yuan Feihu's expression was indifferent. The other 4 eternal realm existences beside him also had a chilling glint in their eyes. If you want to destroy Yuan Church, ask me, Tai Xian, for permission first. Suddenly, the void trembled, and a majestic figure appeared. He was dressed in linen clothes, and behind him there were hundreds of millions of sword auras. It was Origin Void Pavilion Master Tai Xian himself. Lin Sun was shocked, but he couldn't feel happy at all. He knew that Tai Xian trapped himself in the mysterious realm to comprehend the Great Way. Now that he was forced to come out, more than 100,000 years of hard work would probably be wasted. Yuan Chu's expression was complicated as he said, "The winner hasn't been decided yet, and you already came out. You're too impatient." Tai Xian laughed heartily. "It's the same sooner or later. It's just a battle to the death. It's fine to be a little more spectacular." With Tai Xian's appearance, Tian Wu and the others squinted their eyes. "You alone can't change the situation today," Tian Wu said coldly. Tai Xian smiled and said, "I don't care about that. When I die, I'll just drag a few more people down with me." His words made Yuan Feihu and the others frown. If an eternal realm existence fought with his life on the line, it was indeed troublesome. Is that so? Then you can wait to be buried with Yuan Church. Tian Wu's voice was cold. "Count me in for this battle." Suddenly, a cold and majestic voice sounded. Origin Void Pavilion Master Yanji's skinny figure appeared in the field. Lin Sun and Xian Failing's expressions changed. Yu Beihai was going through the eternal trial, but Yanji was here. Who was going to guard the Yuan realm? "Your illness has been cured?" Yuan Chu asked. Yanji said, "There are only some minor problems left. They won't affect the battle." Yuan Chu sighed and said, "Sigh, it's my fault for leaving in a hurry. Otherwise, maybe you wouldn't have such a mental illness." Yanji smiled and said, "Fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. This mental illness is also a blessing for me. It allowed me to finally understand where I should go in the eternal realm." Yuan Chu didn't say anything else and looked into the distance. He seemed to have made up his mind. He seemed open-minded and calm. "Come on, there's no time to lose. Let's fight to our heart's content. Even if Yuan Church is destroyed today, when I return from the ruins of Wonderful Path, I will definitely go to your treasured land." His voice was filled with ruthlessness. Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and the others' hearts tightened, and their expressions changed slightly. Tian Wu sneered and said, "Within 1,000 years, the calamity of the era will come. The world will change, and the past will be destroyed. At that time, whether you, old man Yuan Chu, can still survive the great silence lifeless calamity is still unknown. How ridiculous it is to clamor for revenge now." Shi Gong made a direct decision. "Taoism friends of the ninth heaven, Tian Wu, and I will deal with Yuan Chu and Xuyin. 2 of you will deal with Tai Xian and Yanji. The others can take this opportunity to capture Lin Sun and kill their way into Yuan Church." "Yes." Yuan Feihu and others nodded. The world was chilling, and the war was about to break out. Lin Sun and Xian Failing's hearts sank to the bottom. At this moment, a frivolous and arrogant laughter sounded. What's the hurry? Do you really think there's no one in Fongsun Mountain? Boom! The world was chaotic, and the light of Tao splashed. A figure as handsome as a young man appeared in the field. Although his chi was restrained to the extreme, the aura of Eternal Realm was still so strong that it made people tremble. Martial Uncle Kong Ju. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. I knew you would not show up. Yanji seemed to be relieved and said with a smile. Kong Ju said, my martial nephew has been sheltered by Yuan Church all these years. How can I stand by and do nothing? When did Pewdie have a junior brother? Tian Wu frowned and asked. The others were also confused. It was not that they didn't know Kong Ju, but they didn't know when Kong Ju became Lin Sun's martial uncle and a master of Fongsun Mountain. It's none of your business between Pewdie and me. Kong Ju rolled his eyes. Don't you want to fight? Let's kill to our heart's content today. The appearance of Kong Ju surprised Tian Wu and Yuan Feihu, but they didn't care too much. It was nothing more than one more Eternal Realm opponent. In the current situation, they still had an absolute advantage. Haha, I see. Today's tribulation seems to be caused by Yu Beihai, and the chess piece falls on Lin Sun. In fact, you old guys are playing a big game of chess. Let me guess. The era tribulation will come within 1,000 years. At this time, maybe there's only one possibility that makes you join hands to attack us so shamelessly. Suyin laughed. He seemed to notice something and pointed to the depths of the sky. Is the chess player the mastermind hiding behind the scenes? His words were earth-shattering. The scene fell silent. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. All this was done by the person behind the era tribulation. Looking at the expressions of Yuan Shu, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, and Kong Ju, they also frowned. Su Yin's words seemed to have pierced through a layer of window paper, making them smell something different. In the distance, Tian Wu, Shi, Yuan Feihu, and others had different expressions. Everyone's expression seemed to hide countless secrets, which were thought-provoking. Lin Sun's heart was pounding. If this was true, today's tribulation would be far more terrible than he had imagined. Ox knows, the era tribulation hasn't come yet. It's ridiculous for you to be alarmist here. How can your Yuan sect be targeted by the person behind the scenes? Tian Wu sneered and broke the silence. If there is a force that can threaten the person behind the scenes in the Yuan sect, it will naturally be targeted. Su Yin's eyes flickered. Otherwise, why do you old guys who have lived for so many years and have long been above the Eternal Realm mobilize so many people to deal with the successor of Fongsun Mountain? As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere became more and more mysterious and oppressive. Everyone could tell that what Su Yin meant was that Lin Sun was very likely to have the power to threaten the person behind the scenes. This was incredible. Lin Sun himself was stunned and couldn't believe it. The divine-level power in Lin Sun's hand is indeed a priceless treasure, but I'm afraid it's far from enough to cause such a situation. Then there's only one possibility. The lotus that the master of Fongsun is waiting for, or the immortal path he seeks, is a potential threat to the person behind the scenes. Su Yin's expression was calm, and his words drifted between heaven and earth. Only in this way can your witchcraft, Zen sect, and even the ninth heaven be so restless and put on such a big show today. This is really a big game of chess. Lin Sun felt a chill down his spine. Was it really so? Looking at the expressions of the others in the field, all of them had become strange. It seemed that after listening to Su Yin's words, they all had their own thoughts. More updates. The double monthly votes will end tomorrow. Please allow the goldfish to call for monthly votes again. Chapter 3038. The behind-the-scenes manipulator of the era. In the ruins of fate, Lin Sun heard from Chun Linkong that he had been looking for clues of the behind-the-scenes manipulator for countless years. Like the ruins of fate, there were many civilized worlds coexisting in it, but no one could get out of it. The reason was that they were trapped in it by a strange force. And this kind of force came from a mysterious behind-the-scenes manipulator. However, Lin Sun never expected that the disaster suffered by Yuan sect today was also related to the behind-the-scenes manipulator of the era. If so, it was too terrifying. However, Heaven Shaman suddenly started laughing from extreme rage, and he berated. Oxnose, don't try to play tricks on us. Up until now, no one in this world knows if the culprit behind the calamity of an era is a person or a type of energy of the laws. But you shamelessly think that this is a game of chess played by the behind-the-scenes manipulator. How ridiculous is it? I hope all this is fake. Suin sighed softly with a faint look in his eyes. Sure D, the patriarch of Zen's sect, suddenly took a step forward and said, too much time has been wasted. A battle can end all disputes. That's right. Yuan Feihu, the yellow-robed old man, had a sharp look in his eyes. The other Eternal Realm figures present were also ready to take action. Since all of you are willing to go all out, our spirit church will naturally not hold back too much. Suin said coldly. As soon as his voice fell, clatter, there was a violent ripple in the void, and two figures appeared in the field one after another. One was wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat, like a fisherman. The other was elegant with a feather fan and a silk scarf, holding a jade ruler in his hand. Both of them exuded the aura of the Eternal Realm. They were the two deans of the spirit sect. The former's Taoist name was Dongli. The latter's Taoist name was Zhijing. All of a sudden, Yuan sect had two more Eternal Realm experts. Together with Tai Xian, Kong Ju, and Yin Ji, they were evenly matched with the 5 Eternal Realm experts of the 9th heaven. There was a commotion in the field. No one expected that the spirit sect would be so desperate to help Yuan's sect. Do you really want me to owe you a favor? Yuan Chu sighed. Suin said, if Yuan's sect is finished, I'm afraid the next one will be our spirit sect. The situation had changed, but before Lin Sun could breathe a sigh of relief, the Zen sect's patriarch couldn't help but sigh. I knew there would be so many variables. It looks like the 4 ancestral halls are destined to have a victor today. His voice was still echoing. The sound of Sanskrit resounded in the void, and 2 majestic golden figures appeared one after another. The former was extremely old, and his cheeks were covered in wrinkles. He was a Buddhist monk of the Dhyana sect in the past. The latter looked like a young man and was in his prime. He was the future Buddha of Dhyana, Jiajing. All of a sudden, the situation changed again. Lin Sun couldn't help feeling a headache and a tightness in his chest. These old fellows really had too many tricks up their sleeves, causing the situation to undergo many changes. Before this, who could have imagined that so many changes would occur? When he looked at the expressions of Xian Failing, Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and the others, all of them were extremely surprised and bewildered. Obviously, they'd never expected this. Obviously, all of this wasn't something they were capable of knowing beforehand. Isn't it time for the Eternal Realm experts of your witchcraft cult to take action? Yuan Shu, the patriarch of Yuan's sect, said coldly. At this moment, his expression was extremely cold. Today's changes could be described as thrilling. Everyone had prepared a backup plan, so that the situation had reached an extremely tense point. Once it broke out, the first to suffer the impact would undoubtedly be the Yuan sect. At this moment, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, Kong Ju, and the others all looked solemn and calm. This was a game of chess. Until the last moment, no one knew whether anyone had a backup plan or not. Tian Wu, the patriarch of witchcraft cult, said, things have come to this. It's indeed time to determine the winner. Lei Wu, Xiaoying, you two can also come out. His words made Lin Sun's heart heavier. Sure enough, the witchcraft cult also had real Eternal Realm experts. If so, the enemy had a total of 9 Eternal Realm experts. In terms of numbers alone, they already had an absolute advantage. What was more terrifying was that once such a battle broke out, not to mention how much the destructive power would eventually affect the whole world, the primordial realm, where Yuan sect was located, was very likely to be destroyed. If so, how could all the people of Yuan sect who were sheltered in the secret realm of Tian Yuan have a chance to survive? How could Yu Beihai, who was undergoing the eternal tribulation, not be affected? However, as the voice of Tian Wu faded, no one responded for a long time, the atmosphere suddenly became strange. Whether it was the primordial sect side or the opponent's side, they all felt that something was wrong. What was going on? Even Lin Sun noticed that something seemed to have gone wrong. Finally, a wave of spatial fluctuations appeared. Then, a figure appeared out of thin air. However, it was not the two eternal realm experts of witchcraft cult, but a black-robed man. He was as handsome as jade, like the breeze and the bright moon, and was unique in the world. The aura surging in his body was only at the level of transcendence realm. In a situation where a group of eternal realm experts gathered together, it seemed very insignificant. But when Lin Sun saw him, he couldn't help but cry out, "Second senior brother, how could it be you?" That person was Zhong Xiu, the second successor of the Mind Stone. The master of the Mind Stone once gave him the Taoist name Modest Jade, hoping that he would be a modest gentleman and gentle as jade. But Zhong Xiu was not a gentleman at all. He was so arrogant that he became the only disciple of the Mind Stone who made an exception and took back his Taoist name. The master of the Mind Stone said that Zhong Xiu's arrogance was just like his heart. The higher his cultivation, the more arrogant his heart would be, and it couldn't be changed. In short, if there was no accident, the word arrogance would run through Zhong Xiu's life. Why can't it be me? After Zhong Xiu appeared, he completely ignored the horrifying gazes around him and said, "Junior brother, do you think that I, a guy who hasn't even entered the eternal realm, will only be a burden?" As he spoke, he came to Lin Sun. Lin Sun shook his head and said, "How is that possible? I just didn't expect it." As early as on the starry sky ancient path, Zhong Xiu had left for the eternal world one step ahead of him, leaving only Big Yellow to guard the dark world. From then until now, Lin Sun had never heard any news about Zhong Xiu, his second senior brother. Big senior brother and the others were trapped in the Taiyu True realm, while third senior sister and the others entered the spiritual school to cultivate. Only second senior brother Zhong Xiu and fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi were missing. As a result, Lin Sun was caught off guard when he saw second senior brother Zhong Xiu. "It's right that I didn't expect it. This is called a variable." Zhong Xiu smiled and said, "Junior brother, since today's situation was caused by our Mind Stone, we should naturally be the ones to solve it." As he spoke, he cupped his hands towards Yuan Shu, Su Yin, Xian Failing, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, and the others and said seriously, "The second successor of the Mind Stone, Zhong. Greetings to everyone." He was only a transcendent realm great perfection. However, at this moment, he displayed a demeanor that was not inferior to any of the big shots present. He was upright, calm, and graceful. Although Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and the others felt a little strange, they still nodded slightly. They could tell that Zhong Xiu came prepared. "Let your Mind Stone deal with it." From afar, Heaven Wizard sneered and said, "I'd like to see how a transcendent realm like you is going to deal with it." They also noticed that Zhong Xiu's arrival was strange. Zhong Xiu turned around and glanced at the terrifying existences in the distance. In the end, his gaze landed on Heaven Wizard and said with a smile, "Do you know why Lei Wu and Xiaoying can't come?" His words were like a thunderclap, causing everyone's expression to change. Previously, Heaven Wizard had planned to send two eternal realm existences from the witchcraft sect to join the battle. That way, they would have an absolute advantage and the outcome would be decided. However, Lei Wu and Xiaoying, the two heaven priests, had yet to appear. This unusual scene had already attracted the attention of everyone present. At this moment, Zhong Xiu's words seemed to have revealed the answer to this mystery. "It's your Fengsun Mountain's doing?" Heaven Wizard said angrily. Two eternal realm existences. Once there were casualties, the foundation of the witchcraft ancestral court would suffer a heavy blow. Zhong Xiu said with a smile, "Don't worry. They should have been sent to Kunlun Ruins by now. If they're lucky, they won't be in trouble." Kunlun Ruins. Everyone present was shocked and bewildered. No one had expected that the disappearance of Lei Wu and Xiaoying would be related to Kunlun Ruins, one of the four great Dao ruins. What exactly was Mind Stone trying to do? At this moment, Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and the others could not help but look at Zhong Xiu with a strange expression. Zhongxiu was clearly here to break the stalemate. What do you mean? Heaven Wizard's voice was low, and there was shock and anger between his brows. Zhongxiu stopped smiling and said seriously, "My master said that if a battle breaks out here, not only will the Yuan sect be destroyed, but the lives of hundreds of millions of living beings in the entire seventh heaven will be in danger. I believe that's not what everyone here wants to see. Instead of that, it's better to compete in Kunlun ruins. At that time, even if Kunlun ruins are destroyed, it won't affect a single blade of grass in this world. So it's old man Pewdie's doing." Heaven Wizard's eyes were terrifyingly cold. There was a commotion in the crowd. This was too unexpected. No one had expected the appearance of Mind Stone to change the situation when both sides were constantly revealing their trump cards. Lin Sun was extremely excited. Previously, he felt depressed and powerless. The change in the situation even made him unable to see much hope. However, with the arrival of second senior brother Zhongxiu, everything seemed to be reversed. Zhongxiu said indifferently, "All of you joined forces and came in an overbearing manner to determine the victor in front of the Yuan school. Since this matter started because of my Fangsuan Mountain, how can my Fangsuan Mountain not retaliate? So, the master of the Mind Stone is already here?" Suddenly, the patriarch of the Zen sect spoke, and his voice spread throughout the surroundings. Everyone's hearts trembled. Even Lin Sun could not help but feel anticipation. However, Zhongxiu shook his head and said calmly, "Master went to the ruins of Dao a long time ago. Even the power of the will he left behind is in the Kunlun ruins. He did not come." Everyone was stunned and confused. Chapter 3039. Ever since Zhongxiu's appearance, the tense atmosphere had been shrouded in a layer of mystery. Admittedly, he was only in the transcendent realm great perfection. However, his identity and words caused everyone present to be surprised and suspicious. The atmosphere had also become strange and oppressive. When he personally admitted that the master of the core dimension's true body and will avatar did not appear, everyone present became even more confused. If the master of the core dimension did not make a move, who brought Lei Wu and Xiao Ying to the Kunlun ruins? Because of these doubts, the Witch sect, led by Heaven Wizard, the Zen sect, led by Shur, and the eternal realm existences from the ninth heaven, such as Yuan Feihu, did not act rashly. Things were too abnormal. Today's situation was full of variables, causing them to be vigilant. "We can't delay any longer." Heaven Wizard raised his eyes and looked into the depths of the sky. The eternal calamity against Yu Beihai was still ongoing. In my opinion, only by making a move will we be able to find out who exactly is trying to mystify us, who is delaying for time, or who's putting on an act. Yuan Feihu said coldly. Zhongxiu placed his hands behind his back, calm as ever, and said, "Don't worry. If we calculate the time, that senior is on his way." Heaven Wizard's eyelids twitched. He realized that this senior Zhongxiu mentioned was most likely the person who prevented Lei Wu and Xiao Ying from appearing here. Do it. He couldn't hold back and stepped forward. At this moment, they still had an absolute advantage in the battle. Once other variables appeared, it was very likely that today's situation would be reversed. This was absolutely intolerable for Heaven Wizard. He was only a will avatar. Even if it was destroyed, he wouldn't care about it. Boom! Heaven Wizard took a step forward, and the tense situation was instantly broken. It was as if darkness had descended between heaven and earth. An endless black purgatory appeared, shrouding the people of the Yuan sect in the distance. Almost at the same time, the Zen sect's patriarch Shur, past Buddha Jiaxu, future Buddha Jiajin, and the ninth heaven's 5 eternal realm figures also moved. The Brahma light spread out, the sound of thunder surged, and the terrifying aura of the eternal realm was suddenly released at this moment, causing the power of rules covering this area to collapse into chaos. The moment eternal realm existences like Jia Xiu, Jia Jing, and Yuan Feihu attacked, they suffered a terrifying backlash from the laws of heaven and earth. However, they didn't care about it at all. They forcefully neutralized the power of the backlash and continued to attack. Rumble, In the boundless territory of the seventh heaven, hundreds of millions of sentient beings were horrified to discover that the vast sky seemed to have been bombarded, and a shocking crack appeared on it. It seemed as if the sky was truly about to collapse. The laws of the Grand Tao were showing signs of collapse, and it was to the extent that it affected the operation of the order of the entire world. The boundless mountains, rivers, and the vast world surged with all sorts of inconceivable calamities. That was a real natural disaster. It was like the end of the world. This heavens! How could this be? Countless screams of horror sounded in many places in the seventh heaven. It was unknown how many cultivators felt despair at this moment. This was the power of the eternal realm. Each and every one of their actions could affect the changes and disorder of the laws of heaven. They were unimaginably powerful. Now, it wasn't just one eternal realm expert that had attacked. When they saw Tian Wu, Shi, and the other old fellows disregard everything in launch attacks, Yuan Shu, Suyin, and the others glanced at each other and didn't hesitate any longer. However, right when they were about to attack, a bell suddenly rang. Clang! The bell was grand, heavy, and solemn. It was like the voice of all living beings in the world, and it resounded in the sky above the myriad star sea and spread throughout the entire seventh heaven. At this instant, the collapsed laws of the heaven and earth seemed to have been repaired, and they became extremely firm. The boundless sky that was on the verge of collapse recovered its former tranquility and vastness, and the various inconceivable phenomena of natural disasters seemed to have been wiped away by a shapeless hand, causing the myriad of living beings in the world to be freed from their feelings of despair and terror. The hearts of Tian Wu, Shi, and the other old fellows trembled, and their eyes suddenly focused. Clang! The sound of the bell resounded, and it produced an invisible and terrifying force that oppressed Tian Wu and the others to the point the light on their bodies trembled. Their attacks were dispersed by the grand sound of the bell. Even Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and the others couldn't help but reveal solemn expressions. The sound of the bell represented all living beings. This was the power of the great Tao of Kunlun ruins. At the same time, Lin Sun recognized it as well. He had heard this bell many times a long time ago, but he didn't expect it to suddenly appear at this moment. Moreover, its power was so powerful. Clang! Another bell chime resounded, and a huge vortex door suddenly appeared in the void. Everyone's eyes turned to look at him. Even Tian Wu, Shi, and Yuan Feihu stopped attacking at this moment, and surprise and bewilderment appeared between their brows. Without a doubt, the biggest variable in today's situation had appeared. The vortex door was overflowing with light and colors as it floated in the void, emitting a mysterious aura. Under everyone's gazes, a figure walked out from it. He was dressed in linen clothes, barefoot, and had a strange appearance. His eyes were deep and calm, and in his palm was a bronze bell that was suffused with a boundless and heavy aura. It's him. When he saw this figure, Lin Sun was stunned and revealed a look of disbelief. How could he forget this senior who had once been dormant in the mulberry forest and chatted with him? This person was naturally the golden cicada, the mysterious existence who had once made the grand wish that all living beings in the world could become saints. The legendary figure who had once broken through the forbidden power of order with a single step and left. In Lin Sun's heart, the young man with the golden cicada was an extremely mysterious existence. When one came into contact with him, they naturally couldn't resist him. His entire body was as warm as the spring breeze and as gentle as beautiful jade. It was to the point that people often overlooked how profound his cultivation and strength were. Lin Sun still clearly remembered that senior brother Li Xianwei had once said that a long time ago, there was a golden cicada who went to Mount Fongsuan. It stood on an ancient tree outside the mountain gate and listened to the master of Mount Fongsuan expound on the great Tao for 30 years. The master of Mount Fongsuan did not chase it away. Instead, he instructed his disciples not to disturb it. 30 years later, the golden cicada transformed into a young man, and cupped his hands towards Mount Fongsuan from afar before turning around and leaving. At that time, the master of Mount Fongsuan, who was explaining the great Tao to his disciples, smiled and said something that still left a deep impression on the descendants of Mount Fongsuan. 30 years of meditation and enlightenment. Although this cicada is small, the Tao is greater than the heavens. The Tao was greater than the heavens. At this time, the young man with the golden cicada appeared again. He stood in front of the vortex portal and held the great Tao lawless bell in his hand, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. How could it be you? The patriarch of Zen sect was surprised. It's the golden cicada that wandered in the long river of eras. I didn't expect that he would appear at this moment. The voice of the sky wizard was low, and there was a rare solemnity between his eyebrows. Seniors, could it be that you're talking about that legend who passed through the 10,000 layers of the ocean and experienced 1,000 tribulations in eternity? Yuan Feihu couldn't help asking. His heart was in turmoil. According to the ancient records of the ninth heaven, there was a mysterious cicada in this world who had appeared in many eras and reincarnated in eternity and experienced thousands of tribulations. Who else could it be except him? The eyes of the sky wizard were terrifying as he stared at the young man with the golden cicada. Yuan Feihu and the others couldn't help but feel shocked. Thank you, senior. At this time, Zhong Xiu in the distance cupped his hands and said. Lin Sun also cupped his hands and said, Senior, long time no see. The young man with the golden cicada nodded to Zhong Xiu first, and then looked at Lin Sun with a warm smile, saying, Little friend, when I chatted with you in the mulberry forest, I still feel the mystery of fate when I think of it. It's not an accident that we can meet this time. Lin Sun was stunned. It turned out that the young man still remembered the scene when they first met. The young man with the golden cicada looked at Yuan Shu and Xuyin and nodded slightly. Two Taoism friends. We meet again. I didn't expect it to be you. Yuan Shu had a strange look in his eyes. He had also walked through many eras and met the young man with the golden cicada. He had also heard that there was a cicada that went through a reincarnation in every era, and every reincarnation had to go through thousands of tribulations and difficulties. It was regarded as a legend on the eternal road. There was once a rumor that this cicada was born higher than the sky, and it would not save itself, but save the world. Xuyin sighed with a subtle look in his eyes. If it weren't for you, I really can't think of anyone else in this world who could have such power as you. May I ask, in this life, in this era, have you gone through thousands of tribulations and completely transcended in the reincarnation? The golden cicada smiled and said, A little bit more. How much was a little bit? No one knew, but everyone knew that the appearance of the golden cicada had completely changed the whole situation, and it was no longer under anyone's control. Golden cicada, did you take away the two divine priests of our witch cult? The voice of the sky wizard was cold. Since the appearance of the golden cicada, his face had been extremely cold and gloomy. Yes, the young man with the golden cicada said gently, If the strong like them who have set foot in the eternal realm fight desperately, all the people in the world will suffer. After pausing for a moment, he swept his gaze across everyone present. I'm not here to resolve the enmity between all of you. I'm here to choose a suitable place for all of you to fight. That way, all the living beings in the world can be protected. The sky wizard said coldly, You're using the pretense of all the living beings in the world to help Fongsuan Mountain. Golden cicada, the rumors about you in the world are all illusory and unfathomable. I really want to know how you'll stop everything today by yourself. The young man with the golden cicada smiled and turned to look at Yuan Shu, Xuyin, and the others, fellow Taoists. Are you willing to head to the Kunlun ruins to settle this matter? Sure. Yuan Shu and the others agreed. As long as it did not implicate the Origin sect, they would naturally not refuse such a suggestion. What do you think? The young man with the golden cicada looked at the sky wizard, Sure, Yuan Feihu, and the others in the distance. You want us to agree just because of what you said? Don't you think too highly of yourself? The sky wizard said coldly. Sure pressed his palms together and said solemnly, That will depend on whether you have the ability to make us go. Obviously, he did not agree either. The eyes of Yuan Feihu and the other Eternal Realm cultivators flickered. Although they did not say anything, they were undoubtedly unwilling to leave just like that. I'll continue updating at night. The double monthly votes will end at 12 tonight, and the competition will be the most intense tonight. Yes, I'll leave it to you all. Chapter 3040. The atmosphere was horrifying. The golden cicada youth was not nervous at all. Instead, he sighed softly and said, "Some things in this world can only be settled with fists." Yuan Shu said, "Fellow Taoist, why don't we fight together?" Golden Cicada shook his head. "Let me do it." As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and stepped forward. "Everyone, please enlighten me." Oomph. Heaven Wizard was the first to attack. He flipped his palm, and a dark purgatory-like world appeared. It covered the sky and was filled with infinite eternal chi. As the founder of the wizard sect, even if it was just a Dharma form, the power of his attack shocked the true eternal realm existences present. Too strong. No wonder he had survived the great desolation, fateless tribulation many times. He was a terrifying big boss who had walked through many eras. Golden Cicada stood still, and the great Tao lawless bell in his hand suddenly rang. Clang! To the others, the sound of the bell was grand and boundless, shaking their minds. However, it wasn't inferior to the most terrifying attack in the world to a heaven shaman. The dark purgatory world he created was like a leaf that was torn apart by a gale, and it instantly transformed into powder. Boom! His figure shook violently, and he staggered back from the impact. His expression changed at this moment. So strong. Everyone was shocked by this scene. It should be known that the weakest one here had transcendent realm cultivation, and there was no lack of true eternal realm existences. Everyone knew how powerful Heaven Wizard's Dharma form was. However, such a powerful existence could not withstand the impact of the bell, which was too shocking. "Let's attack together." The Zen sect's founder shouted softly. Boom! His monk robe fluttered, and the great Kiliakosm realm condensed in front of him. It was filled with mysterious and vast law fluctuations. The light was dazzling, and it illuminated the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Rise! Yuan Feihu and other eternal realm existences also attacked at this moment. Some condensed out sounds, some mobilized divine swords, some summoned wind and thunder, and some directly bombarded with fist energy for a time. The heaven and earth law here showed signs of collapse again. The sky was dark, and the earth trembled, as if the end of the world had arrived. The wills and Dharma images of the 2 ancestral masters, plus 7 eternal realm experts, can run rampant in the 9th heaven. Yuan Shu, void concealment, and the others exchanged a glance. They were all prepared for battle. However, at that moment, Jin Chan waved his sleeve. Buzz! The great Tao lawless bell rose into the air, and its thick body glowed. Then, a thunderous bell sound rang through the world. Dang dang, along with the ringing of the bell, the attacks of Tian Wu, Shi, and the others were fiercely suppressed, and the world that was on the verge of collapse stabilized once more. Moreover, the bell produced a terrifying power that constantly battered the figures of the heaven shamans and the others, suppressing their cultivation and power. It was as if he'd fallen into a swamp, causing him to feel as if his hands and feet were bound. Even if he charged forward with all his might, he was actually unable to escape the impact of the bell that surged and spread out. Seeing this scene from a distance, Lin Sun couldn't help but stare with his eyes wide open. He had once brought the artifact spirit of the great Tao lawless bell with him, but who would have thought that this treasure that was born in the Kunlun ruins would actually be so terrifying? No, it should be said that the golden cicada was too powerful. Otherwise, how could a single treasure possibly shake such a group of terrifying big shots? Everyone, please be on your way. The golden cicada, who was dressed in linen clothes and stepping barefoot in the air, spoke softly. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. Boom! The heaven shaman's avatar was actually grabbed through the air. It's a pity that my main body isn't here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have allowed you to humiliate me like this." The heaven shaman was furious, and his face was livid. He struggled with all his might and even tried to destroy his own will avatar to take the young man down with him. However, all of this was in vain. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. His entire body was firmly grabbed and thrown into the space-time door that floated in the air. In the blink of an eye, the will avatar of the witchcraft sex patriarch, the heaven shaman, disappeared. Yuan Chu, Su Yin, Tai Xian, and the others could not help but be moved. Their eyes were filled with shock. In the distance, Tu Mu and the other old monsters of the witchcraft sect were dumbfounded as if they had been struck by lightning. How was this possible? It wasn't just them. The hearts of the Zen sect's patriarch, Shi, Yuan Feihu, and the others who were fighting shook, and they shuddered. Too strong. This golden cicada was really, as the rumors said, its Tao was higher than the heavens. At this time, they did not dare to hesitate and attacked with all their strength. Each of their auras skyrocketed, and it was terrifying beyond imagination. However, their power was firmly suppressed by the continuous ringing of the bell. The most shocking thing was that the power of the great Tao lawless bell was also maintaining the stability of the laws of heaven and earth. Otherwise, once the battle aura spread, it was bound to affect the entire seventh heaven. Here, the golden cicada youth reached out his hand again and grabbed. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the will avatar of the Zen sect's patriarch, Shi, was also grabbed through the air, powerless to struggle. How can you be so strong?" Shi's eyes were filled with disbelief. Even though it was a will avatar, he clearly felt that even if his main body was here, if he fought against the golden cicada youth, he would not have the confidence to win. Whoosh! While his voice was still echoing, Shi's figure was thrown into the vortex portal and disappeared. This time, the expressions of the past Fojiaksu and the future Fojijing of the Zen sect changed. They had used the power of their main bodies, but they were still suppressed in this situation. How could they not understand that their attainments in the eternal Tao were far inferior to that of the golden cicada youth? Retreat. They chose to retreat at the same time. Right now, it was no longer a question of whether they could capture Lin Sun and destroy the Yuan sect, but whether they could keep their lives intact and leave this place. If I let you retreat for a while, you're destined to become a lifelong disaster. No matter who it is, no one can leave until today's grudge is settled. The golden cicada said indifferently. He pressed his hands together. Boom! The figures of the past Fojiaksu and the future Fojijing were covered by an illusory, mysterious light, like fish caught in a net. In the blink of an eye, they were also sent into the vortex portal and disappeared. This scene made Ji Kong and the other old monsters of the Zen sect feel a chill run down their spines, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. That was an existence of the eternal realm. It was the power of the main body. In the eternal true world, they were the true sovereigns of the heavens. But now they were captured like insects. Yuan Chu and Su Yin looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. How high is it? Yuan Chu asked. It's impossible to estimate, Su Yin sighed. Looking at Tai Xian, Yin Ji, and Kong Ju, all of them looked as if they had seen a god. Their eyes were bright and blazing. Such elegance made them look forward to it. Second senior brother, is Senior Golden Cicada's great way really higher than the sky? Lin Sun murmured. Zhongxiu quickly said, that depends on which sky it is. He is an existence that has walked through many eras and has gone through thousands of reincarnations in the eternal realm. If you want to know how powerful he is, I'm afraid you have to ask Master. It was difficult to hide the surprise in his words. Lin Sun could not help but recall the scene when he saw the golden cicada in the mulberry forest. At that time, the golden cicada did not show much power. But now, Lin Sun vaguely understood that to the golden cicada, every era was a reincarnation, and every reincarnation had to go through thousands of tribulations. His strength was no longer something that could be measured by cultivation level. Even the founders of the four great ancestral halls had heard rumors about him. One could imagine how extraordinary the Golden Cicada was. Golden Cicada, can you give us a way out? We promise that we won't leave the ninth heaven before the calamity of the era arrives. Only Yuan Feihu and the other four eternal realm existences from the ninth heaven were left. However, at that moment, they already had the intention to retreat. Have you given the Yuan sect a way out before? Have you given the people in the world a way out? The Golden Cicada young man's expression was calm. However, don't worry. I'm only giving you a chance to determine the victor. When we reach the Kunlun ruins, I won't interfere whether you live or die. Although he said that, the expressions of Yuan Feihu and the others were ugly and gloomy. Boom! They attacked with all their might and tried to leave. However, it was useless in the end. They were captured by the Golden Cicada one by one and thrown into the vortex door before disappearing. At this point, none of the terrifying existences from the Witch Sect, Zen Sect, and Ninth Heaven were spared. They were all sent to the Kunlun ruins. In the distance, Tu Mu and the other members of the Witch Sect, Ji Kong, and the other members of the Zen Sect were all shocked by this series of unforeseen events. Yuan Shu, Su Yin, Tai Xian, and the others were stunned as well. It was just a single person, yet he had captured all the old fellows who could be said to be the strongest in the heavens and sent them to the Kunlun ruins one after another. Such methods could be said to be unparalleled in the world. The Golden Cicada young man put away the great Tao lawless bell, turned around, and said, "Everyone, this grudge will need to be resolved by all of you. It's not suitable for me to interfere. Please go on your way." "Senior, why is that?" Lin Sun could not help but ask. How could he want to see Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and Tai Xian risk their lives in the Kunlun ruins? "I can't do it." The Golden Cicada young man's voice was gentle as he pointed to the depths of the sky. "If I get involved, no matter where I go in the future, no matter how many reincarnations I experience, I'll be targeted by the mastermind." His words caused 1,000 ripples. Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and the others seemed to understand. They cupped their hands and said, "Thank you for your help, fellow cultivator. We will never forget your kindness today." The Golden Cicada young man said, "I was only entrusted by someone. I can't accept such a great favor. Everyone, it's best if you take action early. Don't keep Brother Bodhi waiting." Second senior brother, Master is also in the Kunlun ruins? Lin Sun could not help but ask. "It's just a will avatar of Master," Zhong Qiu said softly. Yuan Shu and Su Yin no longer hesitated and flew straight into the vortex door. Immediately after, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, Kong Ju, and the two eternal realm existences of the Spirit Sect, Dong Li and Ji Zheng, were all about to take action. Lin Sun could not help but ask, "Senior, do we really need all of us to leave? Without Tai Xian and the others, who would guard the Origin Sect? Junior brother, don't stop us. This is a good thing. I'll explain to you later," Zhong Qiu said softly. He could tell that Lin Sun did not want Tai Xian and the others to fight. He was worried that they would encounter danger. However, there was another reason behind this matter. These people had to leave now, or else they would be in great trouble. Here's a gift. Thank you, brother, for your reward. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your rewards and monthly votes. Speaking of an important matter, during the double monthly votes period, there were 3 more Alliance Masters. Currently, there were exactly 50 Alliance Masters. There were 50 Great Daos and 49 Heavenly Evolutions. One of them seemed to be a coincidence. Forget it, the goldfish had agreed. There would definitely be a huge explosion this month. Congratulations to all the Alliance Masters and the brothers and sisters who voted. The above words were free of charge. Chapter 3041. Lin Sun was stunned. He suppressed the doubts in his heart and didn't say anything more. "Old Monster Xian, I'll leave the sect to you." Before leaving, Tai Xian and Yin Ji told Xian Failing and Lin Sun, "Martial nephew, give me back my Dharma form of willpower." Kong Ju stretched out his hand and looked at Lin Sun with a smile. "With your current cultivation, you don't need it at all." Lin Sun also smiled and shook his head. "It's good to keep it as a memento." Kong-ju was stunned and scolded with a smile. Memento? Are you sure that I won't come back? Forget it. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. Maybe it will be useful in the future. After saying that, he stopped smiling and cupped his hands to Lin Sun. Thank you so much for these years. Lin Sun was shocked. When he was about to say something, Kong-ju had already turned around and disappeared into the vortex door. You don't need to thank me. Martial uncle, if you really want to thank me, just come back alive. Lin Sun murmured in his heart. Before long, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, Dong Li, Ji Zheng, and others also left one after another. Seeing their figures disappear into the vortex door one by one, Lin Sun couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. Who would have thought that today's situation would evolve to such a point? Golden Cicada looked into the depths of the sky. The eternal catastrophe against Yu Beihai was still going on. After staring for a moment, Golden Cicada sighed softly and waved his sleeve. A jade bottle appeared, and he handed it to Lin Sun. When the catastrophe is over, just give this bottle to the person who is going through the catastrophe. Lin Sun's heart tightened, and he said, Senior, did you see anything? Golden Cicada said gently, This is the catastrophe. When everything is over, you will know it at a glance. Lin Sun held the jade bottle in his hand and took a deep breath, saying, Thank you for your help this time. If not, today's catastrophe will definitely harm Yuan's sect. Golden Cicada laughed. You'd better thank your master. I just acted according to his instructions. Well, without further ado, I should leave. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but look into the depths of the sky again. Otherwise, I won't be able to leave. After saying that, he waved his sleeve. His figure and the vortex door disappeared at the same time. All of a sudden, only Lin Sun, Xian Failing, and Zhong Qiu were left on the Yuan sect side. In the distance, Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and the other old monsters of the ancestral court were there. After experiencing the numerous shocking events from before, they'd aroused the intention to retreat since a long time ago. However, they didn't dare act arbitrarily because the existence of the Golden Cicada was truly too terrifying, and it caused them to not dare arouse the thought of escaping. However, when they saw the terrifying existences of the Yuan sect disappear like the Golden Cicada, Tumahun, Ji Kong, and the others simultaneously heaved a sigh of relief, and they felt as if they'd taken a trip to the gates of hell and had finally returned to life. At this moment, they just wanted to leave immediately. However, before they could act, Lin Sun said coldly in the distance, Everyone, no one can interfere with our battle now. At first, Lin Sun was fighting with the eternal realm Dharma images of the Shaman sect and the Zen sect. He had the upper hand and killed 9 eternal realm Dharma images. However, it was also at that time that Tu Muhun used his trump card. He summoned the will of the witchcraft cult's founder, Heaven Witchcraft. From then on, changes began to appear in the situation. The Dharma images of the patriarchs of the 4 ancestral halls appeared one after another, confronting and fighting. Immediately after, Yuan Feihu and the other 4 eternal realm existences from the 9th heaven region descended on the battlefield. After that, Tai Xian, Yin Ji, Kong-ju, and the others appeared one after another. Later on, the 2 ancestral halls of the Zen sect and the Spirit sect each sent out 2 eternal realm existences, causing the entire situation to show signs of being out of control. Until Zhong Qiu appeared, he was like a game breaker, turning the situation around. The Golden Cicada's attack could be said to have determined the universe by himself. He moved the killing calamity against the ancestral court of the Yuan sect to the Kunlun ruins in one fell swoop. Because of this, the primordial realm and the Yuan sect were both safe. It was easy to describe, but every single one of them could be said to be horrifying, filled with killing intent, and dangerous to the extreme. At this moment, all the dangers had been resolved. How could Lin Sun let Tu Muhun, Ji Kong, and the others go? As he spoke, his figure had already flashed out, and he didn't hesitate to use the time seal. Buzz, the rules of heaven and earth seemed to be drawn. Countless streams of light poured out, intertwined with each other, and turned into a forbidden array, covering the sea area. It also sealed off the retreat of Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others. On the side of the two ancestral halls, there were still 6 eternal realm Dharma bodies, as well as a group of transcendent realm great perfection and transcendent realm late-stage existences left. The lineup was still extremely strong. However, facing Lin Sun, Zhong Xiao, and Xian failing in the distance, their hearts sank. Everyone, whether or not we can leave this place alive, depends on this battle. Taking a deep breath, Tu Muhan's eyes were cold. Boom! The 6 eternal realm Dharma bodies attacked immediately, but they didn't go against Lin Sun. Instead, they targeted the power of the Time Seal. Obviously, they wanted to work together to break this array. At the same time, Tu Muhan and Ji Kong each led a group of old monsters under their command and attacked. They didn't want to kill the enemy, but they wanted to buy more time for the 6 eternal realm Dharma bodies to break the Time Seal. Little junior brother, let's see who kills more opponents. Take this opportunity to let senior brother witness the glory of an immortal supreme, said Zhongxiu with a smile. His figure soared into the sky, his black robe fluttering in the wind. His whole body emitted an unparalleled sharp light, like a peerless divine sword and scrupulously displaying its sharpness. Clang! A dull and lusterless black sword appeared in Zhongxiu's hand. He did not dodge or evade his opponent who was charging at him, and he charged straight at him instead. Why not? As Lin Sun spoke, his tall figure soared into the sky. Boom! The 5 Dao bodies moved together and rushed into the enemy's group together with Zhongxiu himself. Seeing this, Xian Failing tactfully chose to watch from the side. The 2 brothers wanted to compete, and he wouldn't blindly interfere. Boom! The battle erupted, and the void trembled. Zhongxiu's aura was unparalleled, just like when he was in the dark world back then. He had a domineering aura looking down on the masses. The higher one's cultivation, the more arrogant one's heart was. With the cultivation of the transcendent realm at the full level, as soon as the battle began, he defeated an opponent heavily. His Dao sword pressed down, shaking the opponent's 7 orifices and causing him to bleed and fly backward. His domineering attitude surprised Xian Failing. As expected, the most arrogant person in Fangsun Mountain was not comparable to ordinary people in the same realm. This scene was also seen by Lin Sun, and he was very happy in his heart. Back in the dark world, as the master of Bronze Sparrow Tower, one of the 3 dark giants, second senior brother, was absolutely in existence that he could only look up to. At that time, it was also Zhongqiu's protection that helped him resolve many disputes and killings. Now, second senior brother was still unparalleled and more elegant than before. However, Lin Sun was no longer the little junior brother who needed protection in the past. Now, he could fight side by side with second senior brother, and his cultivation was also on par with second senior brother. Kill! Lin Sun was full of heroic spirit, and he didn't show any mercy, wantonly displaying his cultivation. If it were those eternal realm Dharmalaksana, it might take some effort. But in the face of these people in the same realm, no matter how many of them there were, for Lin Sun, it was not much of a threat. Puff! Puff! His opponents fell one after another, setting off scarlet flowers of blood. In just a moment, 7 people in Transcendent Realm Great Perfection died in Lin Sun's hands. On Zhongxiu's side, only 1 Transcendent Realm Great Perfection and 5 Transcendent Late Realm experts were killed. It was clear who was superior, at least in Xian Failing's opinion. Even though Zhongxiu's combat power was amazing, compared to his little junior brother, he was slightly inferior. Zhongxiu also saw this scene. Although he didn't say anything, he was extremely gratified. He obeyed the orders of his master and guarded the dark world for countless years, just to wait for a unique lotus to bloom. In Fangsun Mountain, only he knew the meaning of that Taoism, the path of immortal supremacy, nirvana of freedom, the eternal tribulation of oblivion, a unique lotus. Now, this lotus finally bloomed to the extreme, blooming the light of immortal supremacy and becoming famous all over the world. The 2 of them had very different mental states. However, when it came to killing their enemies, none of them showed mercy. Even though he knew that it would be difficult to surpass Lin Sun even if he fought with his life on the line, Zhong Xiu didn't give up. He had his own state of mind. Just like what his master said, a disciple didn't have to be inferior to his master, and there was no need to determine who was superior based on rankings. The most important thing was to surpass the master. Boom! The Taoist him rumbled, and blood splattered. The battle was completely one-sided. In just a moment, the witchcraft sect and Zen sect suffered heavy casualties, with transcendent realm great perfection falling one after another. Tu Muhan's eyes were bloodshot, and his eyes were about to pop out. He shouted in grief, "Old ancestors, please come and help." In the distance, the 6 eternal realm Dharma images that were bombarding the time seal felt their hearts sink. Their all-out attacks could only shake the time seal. If they wanted to break it, they couldn't do it in a short period of time. At this moment, when they heard Tu Muhan's sorrowful cry, how could they not know that the situation had become extremely serious? Fight! They looked at each other and moved towards the battlefield together. Seeing this, Lin Sun took a deep breath and suddenly flashed towards Zhong Xiu. He grabbed his arm and instantly left the area covered by the time seal. All of a sudden, the 6 eternal realm Dharma images missed their target. "Senior brother, just wait and see. Leave these opponents to me." As Lin Sun spoke, he swallowed a drop of innate divine dew. His consumed cultivation was instantly restored to its peak state. "Can you fight against those eternal realm Dharma images?" Zhong Xiu was stunned. Yes. The one who answered was Xian Failing. He teleported over and stood beside Zhong Xiu, saying, "When you truly witness your junior brother's skills, you'll know what the prestige of Supreme Master is in this realm." Zhong Xiu was surprised and said, "Then I'll have to see it clearly." As they spoke, Lin Sun once again rushed into the area covered by the time seal. Chapter 3042. After a round of killing, the witchcraft cult and Zen cult had already suffered heavy casualties. Now, there were only 6 transcendent realm great perfection on the witchcraft cult side, and 7 on the Zen cult side. The other transcendent realm late-stage characters had already been slaughtered. Even though these old monsters were still alive, they were all injured. At this moment, the only thing they could rely on was the 6 eternal realm Dharma Laksana. But they had already seen Lin Sun's strength. How could they not know that as long as they were trapped in the time restriction, they were doomed to have no chance to leave alive? Fight him! Seeing Lin Sun, who had recovered to his peak state, rushing in, Tu Muhan roared. He was completely desperate and didn't care about his life. The others were the same. Even Ji Kong and the other powerhouses of the Diana sect were determined to fight to the death. However, at this moment, Lin Sun waved his hand and removed the power of the time restriction. This sudden scene took everyone by surprise and caught them off guard. The opportunity was right in front of them. Should they escape? Fighting spirit was the same as morale. It would be boosted at one go, weakened at the second, and exhausted at the third. Seeing such an opportunity, Tu Muhan and the others' fighting spirit, which was originally ready to fight to the death, was shaken imperceptibly. The reason why Lin Sun removed the power of the time restriction was not to shake the opponent's fighting spirit, but the power of the devouring abyss talent couldn't be exerted at the same time. Otherwise, the power of time would conflict with each other. However, how could Lin Sun really give them a chance to escape? At the same time, when he removed the time restriction, he had already exerted the blade of time without hesitation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hundreds of millions of sword chi whistled out, condensing into a solemn and grand divine talisman formation in the void. It was the supreme inheritance of Oracle Mountain, the infinite divine talisman. The infinite divine talisman was boundless, and the Great Way was endless. The most terrifying thing was that the entire infinite divine talisman was constructed by the power of the Blade of Time. Although it was not the time restriction, its power was undoubtedly more terrifying. Boom! The divine talisman formation shrouded the world. At that moment, an incredible spectacle appeared. It was as if the river of time flowed backward, and all kinds of scenes of the past were reflected in the world. It was strange and dazzling. In an instant, the power of the blade of time, which could last for a quarter of an hour, was exhausted. Even half of Lin Sun's cultivation was taken away. This was the first time he'd combined the blade of time divine ability with the supreme inheritance of Oracle Mountain, the infinite divine talisman. If his current cultivation wasn't sufficiently deep, then he would be utterly unable to endure such consumption. But when he saw the infinite divine talisman flow with the aura of the blade of time that was reflected in the heavens and the earth, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment in his heart. In the years that he had been in seclusion, in order to explore the mysteries of the blade of time to the extreme, he had put in a lot of effort and tried countless times. In the end, he was able to deduce such a powerful attack. To put it simply, when the blade of time was fully unleashed, it was like a Tao weapon, and its power could be fused into the battle. This was similar to the Door of Exile, which could be attached to the abyssal sword cauldron in battle. Boom! The divine talisman formation diagram revolved and rumbled. Time fluttered about, and it was illusory and mysterious. No, suddenly, a scream of horror rang out. A transcendent realm, great perfection, tried to escape, but his body was restrained by the power of the infinite divine talisman formation. When he resisted with all his strength, he was contaminated by the power of the blade of time. Suddenly, he seemed to have become countless years younger. As for his cultivation, it had been completely destroyed. This strange scene caused Zhong Xiao and Xian Failing, who were watching the battle from afar, to gasp. Reversing time and cutting off one's cultivation. The transcendent realm great perfection was instantly reduced to the mortal world and returned to his original state before he started cultivating. This was too horrifying. The Great Way was difficult, and cultivation was not easy. To possess the cultivation of the transcendent realm great perfection, how much effort must one have put in along the way, and how much suffering and bloody baptism must one have experienced. But all of this collapsed in an instant and turned into nothingness. Such a blow could simply make any cultivator suffer a fate worse than death. Bang! After the old monster's cultivation was cut off, he couldn't withstand the fluctuations in the battlefield at all after losing all his strength. His figure was torn apart in an instant and vanished in a puff of smoke. Moreover, this was merely the beginning. Along with the infinite divine talisman's formation descending, Tu Muhun, Ji Kong, and the other old monsters were restrained. They seemed as if they were desperately resisting, as they were deeply afraid of being contaminated by the power of the blade of time. However, the infinite divine talisman was the supreme inheritance of Oracle Mountain. Now that it had been fully utilized by Lin Sun, how could its might be ordinary? Along with a wave of rumbling, the glow of the Tao surged, and it directly trapped and drowned the figures of Tu Muhun and the others within it. After that, waves of shrill, furious, and unwilling voices resounded. Damn it! Why is this happening? Why? Lin Sun, you'll die a horrible death. It was clearly visible that the appearances of Tu Muhun and the others had become younger at an extremely swift speed, yet their cultivation had been cut off in unison. In the end, their souls dispersed within the infinite divine talisman's formation. Zhong Xiao and Xian Failing's hearts surged as they watched this scene. All of them were seniors of the two ancestral halls. Each of them had lived longer than the other, possessed monstrous authority, and possessed reputations that shook the world. They were overlords that were respected by all living beings. But now all of them had been annihilated here. The 6 eternal realm Dharma images were restrained as well, but the eternal energy they possessed was able to resist the invasion of the power of time. Moreover, under the circumstances that they attacked with all their strength, the power of the infinite divine talisman formation couldn't do anything to them for a while. But it was enough for Lin Sun. Bang! His main body and the 5 Taoist bodies didn't waste any time, and they charged towards an eternal realm Dharma image. It was a robust man in a purple robe, and he was resisting the power of the infinite divine talisman with all his might. When Lin Sun and his clone attacked, they were instantly caught off guard. In the blink of an eye, the Dharma image of the man in a purple robe was directly annihilated along with a shocking roar of rage. How is it? In the distance, Xian Failing couldn't help but look at Zhong Qiu. He could clearly see that Zhong Qiu's eyes narrowed, and there was a wisp of shock between his brows. However, in the face of Xian Failing's question, Zhong Qiu pretended to be indifferent and said, as the most famous descendant of Mount Fongsuan, isn't it normal to have such a performance? Old weirdo Xian, I think you're making a fuss about nothing. The corner of Xian Failing's mouth twitched, and he said angrily, You don't mean what you say. Zhong Qiu smiled and said, I know you want to see me shocked and excited, but I won't let you see it. While they were talking, another earth-shattering roar came from the battlefield. Two eternal realm Dharma images actually disregarded the suppression of the infinite divine talisman and attacked Lin Sun desperately, as if they wanted to die together with Lin Sun. Lin Sun's main body suddenly took a deep breath, his sleeves fluttered, and he slashed out with his sword with an unprecedented force. Bang! This sword was like an abyss. It was like a prison, full of mysterious and unfathomable aura of the immortal law, and in the blink of an eye, it split an eternal realm Dharma image. From a distance, it was like a knife cutting a mountain, splitting it into two. Then, the split eternal realm Dharma image exploded and turned into a rain of light that splashed all over the sky. The other eternal realm Dharma image was besieged by Lin Sun's 5 Taoist bodies, and it was a head-on confrontation. In the blink of an eye, the eternal realm Dharma image was directly blasted apart. The eternal realm Dharma image can use a part of the power of heaven and earth, which is the key reason why they can easily kill any immortal figures. But this power seems to be unable to do anything to my little junior brother, Zhong Qiu pondered. With his eyesight, he could naturally see the various details and mysteries of the battle. You can't see through it, right? What shocked me is that the power of the immortal law he mastered can easily dissolve the power of heaven and earth. It's extremely heaven-defying. Xian Failing sighed with emotion. Why was the eternal realm so powerful? The key was that they could already control and use the power of heaven and earth. You can't see through it, but it doesn't mean I can't. Zhong Qiu seemed to understand, and his eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. There was no doubt that his little junior brother had begun to refine the Nirvana order. It should be known that the Nirvana order was born in the Nirvana of freedom. It was an unprecedented good fortune that his master had been waiting for since ancient times. It had been controlled by Lin Sun a long time ago. Only the power of this order could resist and dissolve the power of heaven and earth. Xian Failing couldn't help but ask curiously, What did you see? Zhong Qiu smiled and said, I'm not telling you. Xian Failing almost rolled his eyes. Zhong Qiu is simply unreasonable like a child. Bang! In the distance, the infinite divine talisman's formation collapsed because its power had been exhausted. On the other hand, only the 2 eternal realms Dharma images were left in a fierce battle with Lin Sun. Moreover, their Dharma images were injured and had become illusory and blurry. Little junior brother, stand down. Let me test the strength of the eternal realms Dharma images. Suddenly, Zhong Qiu flashed into the battlefield with blazing eyes as if he'd seen a pair of superb practice targets, and he swung his Dao sword at the first possible moment to attack. Lin Sun was stunned and immediately withdrew. Then I'll hold the line for you, senior brother. He and the 5 Dao bodies dispersed in the surroundings and waited for Lin Sun in a battle formation. Kill. The 2 eternal realms Dharma images didn't hold any hope of leaving. But when they saw Zhong Qiu charging over, they glanced at each other and realized that their chance had come. If they could capture Zhong Qiu, it would be sufficient to resolve the situation of the entire army being annihilated. Rumble. They seemed to be desperate, using all their strength to capture Zhong Qiu. The pressure on Zhong Qiu suddenly increased, and he couldn't help but look solemn. He exerted all his strength to fight with all his might, but even so, he still fell into a situation of being suppressed. He couldn't help but be shocked. When he was watching the battle from a distance, he saw Lin Sun killing the Eternal Realm's Dharma images as easily as slaughtering chickens and monkeys. But when he fought in person, he felt how terrifying the Eternal Realm's Dharma images were. Moreover, the two Eternal Realm's Dharma images had long been injured, and their power was much weaker than before. Under such circumstances, he was suppressed to the point that he couldn't even lift his head. How could he not be shocked? It was easy to know, but difficult to do. Watching the battle and fighting in person, it was indeed completely different. I'll continue to update at night. It's just that my train of thought is a little late. Chapter 3043. The battle came to an end without any mishap. The two Eternal Realm spiritual manifestations were finally killed by Zhongxiu. It took a long time to finish a cup of tea. Zhongxiu also paid a heavy price. He was injured, but it was not serious. His hair was disheveled, his cheeks were pale, and he was gasping for breath. At the end of the battle, he exhaled a long breath and said with emotion, "Now I finally know how high your realm is." Lin Sun stepped forward and handed a bottle of elixir to Zhongxiu, saying, "Senior brother, heal your wounds first." In the distance, Xian Failing, who had seen the whole scene, murmured, "Sure enough, all the descendants of Feng Siyuan are abnormal." Zhongxiu's strength alone was enough to defeat two Eternal Realm Dharma idols in a one-on-two situation. His strength could be said to be heaven-defying. Of course, he might be inferior to Lin Sun, but compared with other people in the world at the same realm, Zhongxiu could be called the overlord of this realm. The infinite star sea had long disappeared. Countless shocking ravines crisscrossed the earth, and everything was destroyed. The chaotic space storm raged, making a whimpering sound. This was the sequela of the war. Even though Golden Cicada took action in time to resolve the most serious disaster, the destruction caused by the aftermath of the battle was still shocking. At least in a short time, it was impossible for the infinite star sea to recover to its original state. The battle was over. Lin Sun cleaned up the spoils on the field and looked into the depths of the sky. There, the light of catastrophe was blazing and thunder was surging. The eternal catastrophe against Yu Beihai was still going on. The aura it emitted was frightening. Let's go back to the sect immediately. Xian Failing's eyebrows were solemn. Although the killing from the outside world had been resolved, it was still hard to predict whether Yu Beihai could succeed in proving the eternal realm. Whoosh, whoosh. Their figures soon disappeared at the entrance of Yuan's sect. Is it over? The terrible catastrophe didn't come. What the hell is going on? Why did such a terrible disaster appear for no reason? At the same time, in the entire seventh heaven, hundreds of millions of creatures gradually calmed down from the panic and despair. The catastrophe that threatened to destroy the world didn't really come, but for the hundreds of millions of creatures scattered in the seventh heaven, it was no less than a trip to the gates of hell. Yet now, when they sensed that the energy of the laws in the heavens and the earth had gradually returned to normal, and when they saw that the inconceivable phenomena of calamity had stopped appearing in the sky, everyone felt as if they'd survived a calamity, and they felt both relieved and bewildered. What was going on? At the same time, in the first to the sixth heaven, and even in the eighth heaven, everyone was talking about this unprecedented disaster that has never been seen since ancient times. However, compared to the seventh heaven, the other heavens didn't feel it strongly, and the impact they suffered wasn't that great, so although they were shocked and puzzled, they didn't panic too much. Only in the eighth heaven, the top 10 immortal giants keenly smelled a different aura and noticed something abnormal. However, even they were unable to guess the outcome of this calamity that targeted the Origin sect's ancestral court. That very day, these Undyings sent their forces out to scout for information. Primordial Realm. The terrifying heavenly tribulation poured down like a waterfall. Yu Beihai's figure was fighting in the heavenly tribulation. The scene was terrifying. Do what you should do. Don't worry about me. I'll watch from here. Zhongxiu immediately stayed and watched this eternal catastrophe. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, "Senior, I'll stay too." Before Golden Cicada left, he gave him a jade bottle and asked him to give it to Yu Beihai after this eternal catastrophe ended. Okay, I'll go find old Fong and the others. Xian Failing flew straight to the Tian Yuan's secret realm. Now, Fong Daoping, Duge Yong, Yuan Wutian, and other deputy pavilion masters were all in the Tian Yuan secret realm, so they still didn't know what was happening outside. Until Xian Failing's figure left, Lin Sun asked, "Senior brother, now you should tell me why Senior Golden Cicada insisted on letting Marshal Uncle Kong Ju and the others go to Kunlun ruins together, right?" Zhongxiu thought for a while and said, "The sky is about to change." "The sky is about to change?" Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly. Zhongxiu said in a light voice, "Today's situation just happens to be like a game of chess, and it's very likely that the person playing the chess is the culprit behind the calamity of an era." Lin Sun said sternly, "Before, Ancestor Su Yin of the Spirit Society also speculated so, and said that the real target of this killing tribulation should be me." Zhongxiu could not help but praise. As expected of a great sage who had walked through many epochs, Senior Void Invisibility's deduction is the same as Master and Senior Golden Cicada. Lin Sun's heart tightened. "Is it really against me?" Zhongxiu smiled and said, "What? Are you afraid, little junior brother?" Lin Sun shook his head. "I'm not afraid. I just never thought that the ultimate purpose of today's event would be to deal with me." Zhongxiu said, "Shirzun once said that there's only nirvana. Only with such power can you threaten the mastermind behind the scenes. In the past, you didn't reveal your nirvana chi. Practically no one in the world believed that the Tao path of an immortal paragon truly existed. But it's different now. Not only do the witchcraft sect, Zen sect, and the eternal gods of the ninth heaven know about this, but even a mastermind behind the scenes should have been alerted." After a pause, he said, "Just like today's killing tribulation, if no one instructed them to do so, do you think the witchcraft sect, Zen sect, and the ninth heaven would have mobilized so many forces for this? Or are they not worried that an all-out war with the Yuan sect would cause them to suffer huge casualties?" Lin Sun thought of what happened today. Even the Dharma images of the founders of the various ancestral courts and the true bodies of the eternal realm experts had been mobilized. This was indeed beyond his imagination. If no one instructed them to do so, would the witchcraft sect, Zen sect, and the eternal gods of the ninth heaven be willing to send so many terrifying forces to fight? Is this all controlled by the mastermind behind the scenes? Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. Zhongxiu said, "It should be so. Senior brother, do you know if the mastermind behind the scenes is a human or an extremely mysterious and terrifying rule power?" Lin Sun couldn't help but ask. As early as in the Ruins of Fortune, he had asked Chen Linkong, but Chen Linkong couldn't give a clear answer. Because in the changes of many eras in the past, no one had seen the mastermind behind the scenes at all, including Chen Linkong's grandfather, Chen Shi, who had begun to search for clues related to the mastermind behind the scenes a long time ago. But it seemed that he also didn't find much. Sure enough, Zhongxiu also shook his head and said, "Not to mention me. Even Master and Senior Golden Cicada still have some guesses and inferences so far." Speaking of this, he thought of something and said, "Junior brother, Master left a long time ago to look for the ruins of Wonderful Tao. Do you know why he did this?" Lin Sun said, "It is said that there is a way to completely resolve the great silence, lifeless tribulation in the ruins of Wonderful Tao." Zhongxiu nodded and said, "Exactly. But most importantly, a place like the ruins of the Tao isn't something that the person that's pulling the strings behind the scenes can control. Perhaps we'll only be able to find out the true identity of that person there." Lin Sun sighed softly. "I really don't have the mood to care about this now." Zhongxiu laughed. "Are you worried that you'll never have a peaceful day after being targeted by the mastermind behind the scenes?" Before Lin Sun could answer, Zhongxiu said, "Don't worry. It's impossible for the mastermind behind the scenes to appear before the calamity of the era within 1,000 years." Lin Sun was surprised. "Why do you say that?" Zhongxiu shrugged and said, "Master said it. If you want to know, you can ask him when you see him in the future." Lin Sun was speechless. Zhongxiu patted him on the shoulder and said, "If the mastermind behind the scenes appears, it's equivalent to walking in front of the curtain. It can't be said to be the mastermind anymore. Over the many eras, no one knows its true face because it has never revealed any traces. It's the same now. After a pause, he continued, as for Senior Golden Cicada's insistence on letting Marshal Uncle Kong Ju and the others head to the Kunlun ruins, it's very simple. It won't be long before the eternal true world changes. Lin Sun was shocked. Senior brother, please explain. In the past, before the calamity of the era descended, the great silence, lifeless tribulation that targeted eternal realm existences would erupt one after another. Only by entering the Kunlun ruins will we have any hope of avoiding such a calamity. Zhong Xiu said, according to Master and Senior Golden Cicada's deduction, in the next few years, the great silence, lifeless tribulation that belongs to this era will appear one after another. If we don't leave the eternal true world as soon as possible, it's very likely that we'll suffer a fatal blow from the great silence, lifeless tribulation. Therefore, to those eternal realm existences, the earlier they leave, the safer they will be. Right now, Master's Will and Senior Golden Cicada are both in the Kunlun ruins, so they can still help Marshal Uncle Kong Ju and the others. If we delay any longer, we won't be able to help even if we want to. Lin Sun came to a realization. He had heard before that the Kunlun ruins was an extremely special Dao ruins. Every time the calamity of the era descended, those eternal realm existences would gather there and fight to avoid the attack of the great silence, lifeless tribulation. Of course, at that time, they could also find clues to the ruins of myriad wonders in the Kunlun ruins. The so-called fight was to fight for the opportunity to go to the ruins of myriad wonders Dao. So, even the eternal realm existences of the eternal God clan in the ninth heaven will leave one after another in the next few years. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. He knew very well what this meant. Zhong Qiu said, that's right. In order to protect themselves, the eternal God clan in the ninth heaven has to make preparations in advance. If it's not an important matter, they won't easily intervene in matters outside the ninth heaven. This situation will continue until the arrival of the era calamity. Lin Sun finally understood and said, if this is the case for us, the next few years will be the best time to take revenge. There was a hint of excitement in his voice. Zhong Xiu shook his head and said, Junior brother, don't underestimate the Eternal God clan. They have survived through the changes of many eras, so you can imagine how terrifying their foundation is. After a pause, he continued, in the past, every time the era calamity descended, the Eternal God clan would choose one or several eternal realm existences to stay behind. These eternal realm existences are ready to die for the sake of defending their clan. They don't even care about their lives, so naturally, they don't care about the threat of the great silence, lifeless tribulation. More updates. Tomorrow, Goldfish would publish the complete list of the 12 Eternal God clans on the WeChat public account. For those who didn't follow the Goldfish public account, just open the Add Followers button and wait for the article on the public account at 10 a.m. tomorrow. When The Chosen was finished, Goldfish would also publish the external chapters of The Chosen on the public account. Chapter 3044. Zhong Xiu's words made Lin Sun realize that it was too early for him to be happy. In the next few years, the appearance of the great silence, lifeless retribution would threaten any eternal realm existence in the world. But if they wanted to take this opportunity to deal with forces like the Eternal God clan, they would still face great danger. Because before the arrival of the era calamity, the Eternal God clan would choose some eternal realm existences to stay behind as death warriors to protect the clan. I'm not in a hurry, Lin Sun thought. There are still about 1,000 years before the arrival of the era calamity. As those eternal realm existences leave one by one, even if there are eternal realm existences in the witch cult, Zen sect, and the Eternal God clan in the ninth heaven, the number is extremely limited. After a pause, he continued, what's more, I am now an existence in the transcendent realm great perfection. Before the arrival of the era calamity, I will definitely try my best to reach the eternal realm. By then, a chill appeared in the depths of his eyes. Before he finished speaking, Zhongxiu already understood Lin Sun's intention and nodded. Yes, in the next few years, it is indeed the best time to take revenge, but we can't rush it. We should take it step by step and plan slowly. At this time, there was a sound of breaking air in the distance. Xian Failing, Du Guiyong, Feng Daoping, and other deputy pavilion masters teleported over. Du Guiyong and the others had obviously learned about everything that happened in the Infinite Star Sea from Xian Failing, and their expressions were filled with joy and excitement. When they saw Zhongxiu, they all saluted and thanked him. They all knew that it was the arrival of Zhongxiu and Golden Cicada that disintegrated and destroyed the enemy's murderous attack, and they were extremely grateful. Zhongxiu smiled and nodded, greeting them one by one. This time, the witch cult and Zen sect suffered heavy casualties. They are destined to be unable to attack us in a short period of time. As for the Eternal God clan in the Ninth Heaven, they may be extremely unwilling to accept such a big loss. But as long as Pavilion Master Yu Beihai survives the calamity, they will never have a chance to attack our sect again. Feng Daoping said excitedly. After Yu Beihai survives the calamity, the God-level order covering the Yuan sect would recover. By then, even the Eternal Realm original body would not be able to shake the Yuan sect's foundation. Du Guiyong's killing intent surged as he said, "We absolutely can't let today's matter go like this. Once the situation has calmed down, it's time to take revenge and wipe out this hatred." This time, the witchcraft religion, Zen religion, and the eternal gods of the Ninth Heaven almost destroyed their Yuan sect. How could they not take revenge for such a deep hatred? There are also the 10 immortal giants of the Eighth Heaven. It's time to deal with them thoroughly. Yuan Wutian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Xian Failing said, "These debts naturally have to be settled one by one, but the most important thing now is to stabilize the situation. Furthermore, the ancestral court of the Spirit Church has paid a huge price to help the sect this time. We can't forget such a great favor." Everyone nodded. This time, the Spirit sect had mobilized the power of its founder, Su Yin's Dharma idol, as well as 2 eternal realm existences, Dong Li and Ji Zheng, to help. This kindness must be repaid. Something's wrong. Suddenly, Zhongxiu, who had been watching Yu Beihai prove his Tao, frowned. At practically the exact same moment his voice resounded, a world-shaking rumble suddenly resounded. Under the sky, Yu Beihai's figure quietly shattered, and even his primordial spirit was severely injured. Is he going to fail the tribulation? Damn it, how could this be? Old Yu has been preparing for this for countless years. Everyone's heart couldn't help but hang in suspense, and their expressions changed drastically. Seeing that Yu Beihai's primordial spirit was about to be completely shattered, the tribulation light in the depths of the sky suddenly dimmed, and then began to collapse like a tide. In just a few blinks of an eye, the eternal lightning tribulation that filled the sky disappeared completely, and no trace of it could be seen anymore. Only Yu Beihai's severely damaged primordial spirit was still floating. This strange scene caused everyone to look at each other in dismay. Did he succeed in transcending the tribulation, or did he fail? The atmosphere was deathly silent. Under the sky, Yu Beihai's severely injured primordial spirit seemed to be unable to accept all this, staring blankly at the depths of the sky. After a long time, he let out a long, bitter sigh. "Leaving my primordial spirit to live in this world. But why? Didn't you let me be annihilated in the Great Tribulation?" His words were full of endless sorrow and disappointment. Xian Failing and the others' hearts sank to the bottom. They finally dared to confirm that Yu Beihai failed to prove the eternal way, but he was not obliterated by that catastrophe, and his injured primordial spirit survived. What a pity, Zhongxiu couldn't help sighing. Even if he survived after failing to prove the eternal way, he didn't know how long he would have to wait for the next opportunity. Moreover, such a blow was so great that it was very likely to make a peerless figure depressed. Lin Sun was also stunned. Since he entered the Yuan sect, he had heard that Yu Beihai, the head of Yuan Qing Pavilion, had been practicing in seclusion all year round, preparing for the eternal way. However, he had never expected that Beihai would fail to transcend the eternal tribulation even though he had made such ample preparations. Old you, the great way, is difficult. It doesn't matter if you fail for a while, but don't give up. Xian failing rushed to the void and comforted him. Other old monsters also gathered around and comforted Beihai. Beihai was silent, and his expression was uncertain. After a long time, he squeezed out a smile and said, "Don't worry about me. I just suffered such a blow that I can't accept it for a while. Take these medicinal pills quickly." Xian failing and the others took out some natural treasures, all of which could be called peerless healing treasures. But Beihai shook his head and refused. "I don't lack these. The failure of this tribulation is an unforgettable lesson for me. I should taste the failure and understand its meaning." Well said. Zhongxiu came over. To seek the great way, one should have such courage and state of mind. Only in this way can he go further in the next Tao proving. At this time, Lin Sun thought of something and quickly took out the jade bottle given by Golden Cicada and handed it to Beihai. "This was left by Senior Golden Cicada, and he specially told me to give it to you." Beihai was stunned. "Golden Cicada?" Xian failing quickly explained it to him, and Beihai finally understood. He picked up the jade bottle and explored it with his divine sense. Just a moment later, his whole body trembled, and his expression was sometimes surprised, sometimes confused, sometimes shocked, and sometimes unbelievable. This made Xian failing and the others look at each other. "What's in that jade bottle?" Xian failing asked Lin Sun. Lin Sun shook his head. He didn't know either. After a long time, Beihai suddenly cupped his hands to Lin Sun and said, "Thank you, my young friend." His expression had become calm, as if all the shadows in his heart had been swept away, and he felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Lin Sun hurriedly said, "Senior, don't be so polite. This is a gift from Senior Golden Cicada. I dare not take credit for it." Xian failing couldn't help asking, "Old you, what's in this jade bottle?" Beihai said with a smile, "For me, it's no less than the grace of rebirth. Maybe I can return to the eternal way with the help of the thing in the bottle." Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they heard this. What kind of treasure was this to have such a heaven-defying effect? Senior Golden Cicada said that we can't reveal any information about this thing. Beihai explained, "So you don't have to guess." After a pause, he continued, "In addition, when my injury recovers, I will leave the sect and go to Kunlun ruins." This decision was very sudden, and everyone didn't expect it. Xian failing pondered for a moment and said, "Since you've made your decision, we won't persuade you any further." The others nodded. "Thank you, everyone." Beihai cupped his fists and bowed seriously. "If you really want to thank me, take out your treasured wine to entertain us." Xian failing laughed loudly. "Why not?" Beihai laughed as well. Lin Sun was quite happy when he saw this. He could tell that the jade bottle given by Golden Cicada had most likely given Beihai a new hope of achieving the Tao. "Before we drink, there are some things that we have to arrange," Xian failing said. Too many things had happened on this day. Beihai achieved the eternal way and triggered an unprecedented calamity. Following that, the witchcraft sect, the Zen sect, and the Ninth Heaven attacked, causing a shocking massacre in the Infinite Star Sea. Until now, everything had finally come to an end. As Yin Ji, Tai Xian, and the rest left for Kunlun ruins, the Yuan sect had many things to do. On the same day, the power of the Yuan sect's god-level order recovered and enveloped the sky above the Infinite Star Sea and the Yuan realm again. Everyone in the Yuan sect who was placed in the Tian Yuan mystic realm was brought out by Xian failing and the rest and returned to various parts of the sect. Very quickly, everyone in the Yuan sect found out about what had happened today, and it caused an uproar and commotion. 3 days later, in front of the Yuan realm's central hall, everyone in the Yuan sect was summoned. Beihai, the Origin Clear Pavilion Master who had not appeared for many years, publicly announced his resignation from the position of Origin Clear Pavilion Master, and Lin Sun, the Vice Pavilion Master of Origin Clear Pavilion, would take over. At the same time, Beihai announced that Xian failing would take over the position of Origin Clear Pavilion Master. Dugyeong would take over the position of Origin Void Pavilion Master. The vacant deputy pavilion head positions of Lin Sun, Xian Failing, and Dugyeong were taken over by three elders of the three pavilions with transcendent realm great perfection cultivation. Finally, Yu Beihai looked at Lin Sun and laughed loudly. Congratulations, Pavilion Master Lin. Congratulations, Pavilion Master Lin. Congratulations, Pavilion Master Lin. Congratulatory voices rose and fell, shaking the nine heavens. Whether it was the elders of the Yuan sect or the disciples of the Nine Peaks, they were all extremely excited. Their hearts were filled with shock and admiration. 100 years ago, Lin Sun had just joined the Yuan sect and become the successor of the Ninth Peak. 100 years later, he had taken over the position of Origin Clear Pavilion Master under the watchful eyes of everyone. All of this was like a miracle, breaking the record of the Yuan sect. Whether it was in the past or in the future, this record would probably never be surpassed again. This was a true legend. Moreover, this legend was destined to continue in the years to come. A little later, Chapter 3045. The Yuanqing Pavilion Master was in charge of the selection and appointment of the sect. In the Yuanqing Pavilion, the three deputy pavilion masters Feng Daoping, Yu Xing, and Zhang Qianxi, as well as a group of elders, deacons, and deputy deacons, were all under the command of the pavilion master. As a pavilion master, he had become in existence second only to the sect master in Yuan sect. His status was high, his power was great, and the cultivation resources he could use were far from comparable to others. But at the same time, the greater the power he had, the greater the responsibility he had to bear. Today, Yuan sect no longer had an eternal realm expert. Among the transcendent realm great perfection, Lin Sun's combat power was undoubtedly the strongest. In a sense, from this day on, Lin Sun had become the youngest and most influential pavilion master in Yuan sect. On the same day, Yuan sect held a banquet to celebrate the three new pavilion masters Lin Sun, Xian Failing, and Dugyeong. Late at night, Lin Sun, who returned to the cave residence from the banquet, sat down with his second senior brother Zhong Qiu and had a long talk. At present, the Witch sect and Zen sect have suffered heavy casualties. The Ninth Heaven's Eternal God clan will no longer be able to intervene in the mortal world's affairs in a short time. I have already sent a message to Junior Sister Roosu of the Spirit sect. 3 days later, we will set off for the Taiyu realm together to rescue the eldest senior brother and the others. Zhong Qiu told Lin Sun his decision. Lin Sun was shocked and said without hesitation, "I will go with you." Zhong Qiu smiled and shook his head. "If you go, it will cause a lot of variables. If you're targeted by those enemies again, it will be bad." Lin Sun frowned. "With my current combat power, unless the Eternal Realm True Body takes action, I am afraid that no one can do anything to me. Under such circumstances, there is no need to be afraid of anything." Zhong Qiu said with a serious expression, "Junior brother, I am not advising you to stay in Yuan sect, but I have other arrangements for you." Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Senior brother, please instruct me. As long as I can help, I will do anything." Zhong Qiu sighed. A long time ago, the power of the Zen sect gathered the top 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven and stationed them outside the Taiyu True Star, so that over the years, the senior brother and the others have been trapped inside, unable to escape. But the current situation is different since a long time ago. When we attacked the Origin sect a few days ago, the forces sent by the Zen sect were completely annihilated. Now, the Zen sect has suffered a great loss, and its foundation has become unstable. Hearing this, Lin Sun nodded secretly. In the battle that took place in the Infinite Star Sea, the Zen sect's 24 transcendent realm great perfection existences, 36 transcendent late realm experts, and more than 10 eternal realm willpower Dharmalaksana were all annihilated. Apart from that, the will of the Zen sect's patriarch, Sure, as well as the past Buddha Jiaxu and the future Buddha Jejin, were forcefully brought to the Kunlun ruins by the Golden Cicada. It could be said that after this battle, almost all the higher-ups of the Diana sect had died. After all, The Zen sect only had a total of 32 transcendent realm great perfection existences. The loss of 24 of them at once was a huge blow. As for the eternal realm existences, there were only 3 in the entire Zen sect. They were the past Buddha Jiaxu, the present Buddha Jianan, and the future Buddha Jiajin. As for the past Buddha and the future Buddha, they had already been brought to the Kunlun ruins, leaving only the present Buddha Jianan in charge. As a result, the foundation of the Zen sect was greatly affected. It was the same for the witch sect. The foundation of the Zen sect is in turmoil, and they can't even take care of themselves. The top forces possessed by the top 10 immortal giants have long been scattered by you, junior brother. Under such circumstances, how can the enemies stationed outside the Taiyu True Star pose any threat? Zhongxiu said, in fact, we don't even need to make a move. Just the methods of the senior brother and the others can sweep them away. Of course, the senior brother and the others might not even know that the outside world has already undergone earth-shattering changes, so it's very likely that they're still hiding in the Taiyu True Star. Lin Sun could not help but nod. That was true. Zhongxiu smiled and said, so, this time, I will go to the Taiyu True Star with third junior sister and the others. As for you, junior brother, you might as well go to the 8th heaven. The 8th heaven? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Yes, the eternal gods in the 9th heaven can't even take care of themselves. How can they care about the life and death of those watchdogs? This is the best time to beat them down. Zhongqiu thought for a moment. However, junior brother, this time you should mainly probe and see if the eternal gods of the 9th heaven will participate in the current situation. If the 10 immortal giants are in danger, will the eternal gods join in? Lin Sun readily agreed. For the current him, there was no need to worry too much about killing his way to the 8th heaven. You must be careful. If some old immortal of the eternal god race suddenly attacks, you must retreat immediately and leave the 8th heaven immediately. Zhongqiu warned. He was worried that Lin Sun would cause too much trouble in the 8th heaven in order to take revenge and be targeted by the eternal gods again. Senior brother, don't worry. I only need to send 5 avatars to deal with the 10 immortal giants. Speaking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but say, Senior brother, why don't you let my main body go to the Taiyu True Star with you? I haven't seen senior brother and the others for a long time, and I really miss them. Zhongqiu's eyes were complicated. If 9th junior brother is still alive and sees that the Great Path Golden Court scripture created by him has been perfected by you to such an extent, he will be very pleased. Thinking of Guyupu, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel sad. The Great Path Golden Court scripture was taught by senior brother Guyupu, and the cultivation of the 5 Tao bodies contained in it is only limited to the Emperor realm. It can be said that this Tao scripture was laid by senior brother Guyupu, and what he has done over the years is to constantly improve this Tao scripture and integrate it into his own cultivation. Senior brother Guyupu, did he really die without leaving any traces? Lin Sun couldn't help but ask. Zhongqiu was taken aback. He pondered for a moment before saying, that's not necessarily true. Perhaps Master still has some things that 9th junior brother left behind. Lin Sun said, no, I'm talking about the traces related to Guyupu himself, such as his body, spirit, or even hair. Zhongqiu was puzzled. Why are you asking about this? Lin Sun took a deep breath and told how he saved his disciple Tang Jiang. If the 9th senior brother also left a trace of vitality, maybe I can find a way to bring him back to life. Even Zhongqiu was stunned as waves of shock surged in his heart. Only then did he finally understand that nirvana, the core secret of order, was actually so heaven-defying. It could bring the dead back to life and defy the heavens to change one's fate. This was already no different than a forbidden ability. After that, anticipation couldn't help but surge within Zhongqiu's heart, and he said, Junior brother, I'll help you ask about this. Besides 9th junior brother, there are some other junior brothers and junior sisters that suffered misfortune on the ancient path, and they ought to have left behind some things. Perhaps you'll be able to find something useful to you from those things. Lin Sun said, okay, thank you for your help. You can't mention this to anyone else. Zhong Qiu looked solemn. This level of nirvana? The power was simply amazing. Once it was leaked, it would be a disaster rather than a blessing for Lin. Considering how the eternal gods had survived for so many eras, there had to be quite a few terrifying ancestors who had perished. Once they knew the nirvana of Lin Sun, this power could bring these terrifying existences that had perished in the river of time back to life. They would probably fight for it crazily at all costs. Lin Sun nodded and said helplessly, "Senior brother, I'm asking you if you agree to let me go with you." "Why do you change the subject again?" Zhong Qiu laughed heartily and patted Lin Sun on the shoulder, saying, "Now that the Yuan sect has no eternal realm experts in charge, and you have just become the Yuan Qing Pavilion Master, you are needed to hold the fort at this time. How can you leave without permission for the matter of Fonsuan Mountain?" After a pause, he said seriously, "Over the past 100 years, the Yuan sect has given you the greatest protection, so that you have the opportunity to make continuous breakthroughs and transformations, and you have today's achievements. Fonsa Mountain owes the Yuan sect a great favor, and we have to pay it back. Now is a troubled time, and no one can guarantee that the Yuan sect will really be at peace. But no matter what, as long as you are here, even if something unexpected happens, you can solve it as soon as possible." After hearing this, Lin Sun was silent for a while. Thinking about it, Yuan sect had been like a towering tree, sheltering him from wind and rain over the years, so that he could avoid many threats and attacks from enemies. Even because of his existence, Yuan sect had suffered a lot. Now, Yuan sect had just survived that terrible disaster. The situation seemed to be stable, but who could guarantee that there would be no disaster in the future? As Zhong Qiu said, there was no one in the eternal realm in Yuan sect now. So someone had to hold the fort, and in the whole Yuan sect, only Lin Sun had the strongest combat power, and he was already the Yuan Qing Pavilion Master, so he had to bear such a heavy responsibility. "Okay, I'll follow your arrangement, senior brother." Lin Sun made a decision. Zhong Qiu said, "Don't worry, junior brother. Nothing will happen during our trip to the Cosmic True Realm. If nothing unexpected happens, we'll be able to return very soon. At that time, all of us will be able to reunite." Lin Sun took out a jade talisman imprinted with the will left by Kong Ju and handed it to Zhong Qiu. "Senior brother, take this thing." Zhong Qiu was stunned, but he didn't refuse in the end. He could see that if he didn't take it, Lin Sun wouldn't be at ease with their operation. 3 days later, Zhong Qiu said goodbye and left Yuan's sect. On the same day, he met up with Ruosu and others who had left the spirit sect and went to the Taiyu True Realm together. On the second day after Zhong Qiu left, Lin Sun found the 2 pavilion masters, Xian Failing and Duge Yong, and told them about his plan to send the Great Path clone to the 8th heaven. Knowing that Lin Sun's original body would stay in Yuan's sect, Xian Failing and Duge Yong agreed with him. Otherwise, they would never have allowed Lin Sun to take the risk of going to the 8th heaven alone. After all, there was a path to the 9th heaven, and although the 10 immortal giants weren't much of a threat, they had the support of the Eternal God clan, so it was easy for them to be targeted by the Eternal God clan. But if he sent the Great Path clone, there would be no problem. I will continue to update tonight, but it will be very late, probably before 11:30 p.m. Chapter 3046. On the same day, Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies moved together and left the Yuan realm. His main body stayed behind to guard the Yuan sect. In fact, there was nothing much to do. In addition to cultivating, Lin Sun's main body stepped up the time to refine the Nirvana order. Now, only 20% of the Nirvana order had not been refined. But this 20% power was also the core key of the Nirvana order. Lin Sun had a strong hunch that when he completely refined the Nirvana order, his own immortal law was destined to achieve a new transformation. 7th Heaven, Central Main Domain, Sky-bearing City. In the streets, in the tea houses and restaurants, people were discussing the battle against the Yuan sect that happened a few days ago. Who would have imagined that the witchcraft, Zen sect, and the 9th Heaven's Eternal God clan were defeated by the Yuan sect? Many similar sighs sounded. Now, all kinds of news about that battle had spread in the 7th Heaven, setting off an unprecedented sensation. The world was shocked. It is said that the witchcraft and Zen sect suffered heavy casualties. Just the loss of hundreds of transcendent realm experts. Moreover, they were all killed by Lin Sun, the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect. Isn't Senior Lin Sun's combat power too terrifying? This is nothing. According to reliable sources, even some eternal realm existences of the ninth heaven fell in front of the Yuan sect. So, the Yuan sect became the final big winner? When Lin Sun's green wood Tao body walked in a sky-bearing city, he saw such a scene. People were discussing the battle everywhere. Of course, most of those discussions were speculations and even exaggerated. In this regard, Lin Sun's green wood Tao body laughed it off and didn't bother to pay attention to it. He came to sky-bearing city for only one thing: to go to the eighth heaven through an ancient domain array in the city. In the seventh heaven, there were a total of 108 ancient domain arrays leading to the eighth heaven, just like the passage between the seventh and eighth heaven. They had been controlled by the major immortal emperor clans since ancient times. For example, the ancient domain array in sky-bearing city was controlled by the immortal emperor clan, Tantai clan. The reason why Lin Sun came here was not on a whim. But when he looked up information about the ancient domain array, he saw that the immortal emperor clan was controlling the ancient domain array of sky-bearing city was Tantai clan. The reason was simple. When Lin Sun entered the first immortal pass in the vast thousand battle territory, he made friends with a man named Tantai Feng and drank together. Tantai Feng even helped him resolve a chase from Wen Xiaoheng and other opponents. Although he and Tantai Feng couldn't be said to be true friends, they had met once after all. Now that he planned to go to the eighth heaven, Lin Sun was naturally happy to set off from this ancient domain array controlled by Tantai Shi. If he was fated, he might be able to see Tantai Feng again. Lin Sun clearly remembered that the Tantai family located in the seventh heaven was established by Tantai Feng's grandfather, Tantai Changkong. Tantai Chang Feng had great willpower, spending tens of thousands of years to subdue a heavenly order energy. Back then, in order to obtain this heavenly order energy, he even fought against 8 undying beings. From the time the Tantai clan took root in the seventh heaven to the present, it has only been more than 3,000 years. Now, it has become a first-class force in the seventh heaven. It's conceivable how powerful Tantai Changfeng is. For someone who can cross the vast thousand battle territories and take root in the eternal true world, to be able to single-handedly create an immortal emperor clan expert, Lin Sun could not help but admire him. Today, Lin Sun knew better than anyone that as an outsider, it was not easy to create such a foundation in the seventh heaven. While thinking, Lin Sun walked towards the center of the city. The ancient domain array was located in the center of the city. As soon as he entered the city, it was found by Lin Sun's spiritual awareness. I'm afraid the Tantai clan is finished. Suddenly, Lin Sun's spiritual awareness captured a voice. This voice came from a private room of a restaurant near the street. Although it was extremely low, Lin Sun could still clearly sense it with his current cultivation. Lin Sun stopped immediately. In his spiritual awareness, he clearly saw 2 cultivators sitting in the private room, drinking and talking. One of the black-robed old men said nervously, "Don't talk nonsense. Be careful not to be heard by others. Don't worry, now everyone in the Tantai clan is in danger. How can they have the mood to talk to us?" A gray-robed man on the opposite side smiled disapprovingly. The black-robed old man calmed his mind and asked, "What do you mean?" The gray-robed man said, "In the early years, the Ten-Clan Battle Alliance was established. In the seventh heaven, the Tantai clan was the first force to choose to attach to the Zhu clan. If not, with the foundation of the Tantai clan, how could it be possible to take over the ancient domain array in the city so smoothly? You must know that any cultivator who wants to use the ancient domain array to go to the eighth heaven has to pay a huge amount of wealth. And since taking over this ancient domain array, the wealth has been enjoyed by the Tantai clan alone." The black-robed old man frowned. Is it because of this that the Tantai clan has attracted the coveting of other forces and they want to attack the Tantai clan? The gray-robed man shook his head. Wrong. With the support of the Zhu clan, who dares to harm the Tantai clan? Then why did you say that the Tantai clan is finished before? Don't you understand? The gray-robed man pointed out. A few years ago, the power of the Ten Clan Battle Alliance was destroyed by Yuan's sect deputy Pavilion Master Lin Sun. Under such a blow, the strength of the 10 immortal giants has been greatly damaged, and they can't even take care of themselves. If that's all, it's fine. But now, even the forces of the witch cult, Zen cult, and the Ninth Heaven have been defeated in front of the Yuan sect. In this way, isn't the Tantai clan in danger? Hearing this, the black-robed old man suddenly understood and said, You mean the Tantai clan will suffer from the Yuan sect's punishment? The gray-robed man nodded. Not only the Tantai clan, but the forces that chose to attach to the 10 immortal giants in the past. I'm afraid they have to be prepared to be cleaned up by the Yuan sect. The black-robed old man took a deep breath. If this is the case, won't the immortal imperial clans in the seventh heaven be in danger? The gray-robed man shook his head and said, You can't say that. With the foundation and prestige of the Yuan sect, how can they carry out a comprehensive purge of the immortal imperial clans in the seventh heaven just for this reason? In my opinion, those forces that were forced to choose to attach to the 10 immortal giants should not be the target of a Yuan sect's punishment. On the contrary, forces like the Tantai clan, who took the initiative to attach to the 10 immortal giants from the beginning, will suffer the Yuan sect's revenge. Speaking of this, the gray-robed man concluded, This is called standing on the wrong side. When the Yuan sect comes back to their senses, they will definitely make an example of them, and let the world see what it means to be the accomplice of a tiger. The black-robed old man couldn't help but show a look of admiration. Dao brother is wise. This old man admires you. The gray-robed man said, It's a pity that I originally admired the patriarch of the Tantai clan, Tantai Chongfeng. This person is full of courage and has great means. But I made a wrong choice in the past. If my guess is right, the other immortal imperial clans may also be able to see the predicament of the Tantai clan. It is very likely that they are already sharpening their knives, waiting for the Tantai clan to suffer a disaster so that they can divide up the territory and forces left by her. Hearing this, Lin Sun didn't listen anymore. He withdrew his divine sense and continued to move forward, but his brows were slightly wrinkled. When the 10-clan war alliance was established, it was announced to the world that it was to deal with Lin Sun. But under such circumstances, the Tantai clan actually took the initiative to attach to the Zhu clan, which made Lin Sun feel quite disappointed. Originally, he was still looking forward to reuniting with Tantai Feng if there was fate. Now it seemed that it was better not to meet. If the Tantai clan was forced to choose to attach to the Zhu clan, Lin Sun would still be very understanding. But the Tantai clan took the initiative and attached to the Zhu clan immediately, which made Lin Sun feel a little uncomfortable. Soon, the ancient domain array in the center of the city appeared in Lin Sun's vision. He shook his head and no longer thought about it. However, when he was about to walk into the ancient domain array, he suddenly noticed that something was wrong. At this moment, from today onwards, Sky-bearing City and this ancient domain array will be controlled by my Tong clan. A cold voice sounded in the field. Immediately after, groups of cultivators rushed out of the nearby streets, like a tide, and killed the guard stationed near the transmission ancient domain array. Oh no, the enemy is attacking. Ask for help. Those guards shouted in shock and anger, but in just a moment, they were completely killed by the Tong clan's experts from the Immortal Emperor clan, and blood flowed on the ground. On the Tong clan side, a powerful silver-robed man with hair as black as ink stood with his hands behind his back and said in a deep voice, "Irrelevant people, retreat quickly." His voice was like thunder. Go quickly. Run quickly. In the nearby streets, there were panicked screams, and many pedestrians were frightened and fled into the distance. It was chaos. Lin Sun frowned. He didn't expect that before he went to settle accounts with the Tantai clan, it was very likely that the Tantai clan would be in trouble. Even the ancient domain array had been seized in broad daylight, and it was obvious how terrible the Tantai clan's current situation was. If he didn't know what the Tantai clan had done all those years ago, Lin Sun might have lent a hand, but now he wasn't willing to interfere. Fortune and misfortune depended on each other, and they only had themselves to blame. Suddenly, a Tong clan expert rushed over from afar, pointed at Lin Sun, and berated, "What are you still standing there for? Didn't you hear what my lord said? Get lost." Lin Sun looked around, and only then did he notice that besides the hundreds of Tong clan experts in the vicinity of the transmission ancient domain array, he was the only one left. "Bastard, you're really tired of living." Seeing that Lin Sun was indifferent, the Tong clan expert instantly cursed impatiently, and he swung his palm towards Lin Sun from afar. Bang! The palm force surged, but before it could get close to Lin Sun, it vanished without a trace. The Tong clan expert was stunned. Right at this moment, Lin Sun said indifferently, "Death is not to be regretted." Bang! The Tong clan expert's body exploded into ashes, and he vanished without a trace. It was simply like he'd erased all traces from the world. In the distance, the powerful silver-robed man and the other Tong clan experts were shocked. More updates. Chapter 3047. In the seventh heaven, the Tong clan of the Immortal Emperor was also a first-class force, and there were many Nirvana Realm elders in the clan. Although their prestige was not as strong as that of the four East Imperial clans, they could still be called an overlord. At this moment, seeing their companion die in front of Lin Sun, the experts of the Tong clan couldn't help but show anger and a trace of surprise. Under such circumstances, he dared to kill one of their clansmen without hesitation. There were only two possibilities. The other party either had a powerful background, or he had extremely powerful combat power. "I'm Tong Qianxiu. May I ask for your name?" The eyes of the silver-robed man flashed as he spoke in a deep voice. He couldn't see through Lin Sun's cultivation, so out of caution, he decided to test Lin Sun's strength first. Lin Sun saw through the other's thoughts at a glance, and couldn't help but feel a little dispirited. He had seen and experienced too many such things, and was too lazy to pay attention to them. He said directly, "I'm not interested in what you're doing here. If you don't want to die, you'd better get out of the way now." With that, he stepped towards the teleportation array in the distance. The silver-robed man who called himself Tong Qianxiu's face suddenly became ugly. Today, the power of the Tong clan had penetrated every corner of Sky-bearing City, but even under such circumstances, there was still someone who threatened them like this. This made Tong Qianxiu feel quite uncomfortable. Looking at the other Tong clansmen present, their expressions were also much gloomier, and their eyes were surging with killing intent. It could be said that if Lin Sun hadn't shown such a strong attitude before, how could they have been polite? They would have already rushed up and torn Lin Sun into pieces. "Do you plan to go to the eighth heaven from this teleportation array?" Tong Qianxiu seemed to have seen something, and his eyes surged with killing intent. Lin Sun ignored him. "Stop! If you dare to move forward, don't blame us for being impolite." Seeing that Lin Sun was gradually approaching, the experts around the ancient domain formation were a little restless, threatening him sternly. Lin Sun frowned and waved his sleeve. Boom! The experts of the Tong clan in front of the ancient domain array, regardless of their cultivation level, were suddenly swept away by a hurricane. When they fell to the ground, some were seriously injured and unconscious, while others were bleeding from their 7 orifices and screamed miserably. This scene shocked the other Tong clan experts present and made them shiver all over. So powerful! Tong Qianxiu's expression changed completely. He sensed that something was amiss and immediately crushed a jade talisman. After doing this, he felt a little relieved and said, "Fellow Taoist, the array disk used to open this ancient domain array has been taken away by my clan. If you want to use this array to go to the 8th heaven, why don't you wait for a while?" As he spoke, he waved his hand and had the nearby experts of the Tong clan retreat. Tong Qianxiu had already realized that it was impossible for them to be Lin Sun's opponents with their current strength. Lin Sun looked at the ancient formation for a moment and said, "Who has the formation plate?" With his abilities, he didn't have to use an array disk to open this array. However, without an array disk, it would still take some time. Lin Sun didn't want to waste his time on this. Tong Qianxiu said, "That formation disk is in the hands of our clan's third supreme elder." It seemed that he gave in, but how could Lin not see that he was stalling for time? Lin Sun turned around with his back to the ancient formation. He looked at Tong Qianxiu and said, "The carrier rune you just released was to ask for help from this person?" Tong Qianxiu's heart was inexplicably depressed. He braced himself and said, "Yes. If you retreat now, you may still have a chance to live otherwise." Lin Sun smiled and said, "I'll leave after I get the formation plate." Tong Qianxiu's expression was uncertain. He had seen that Lin Sun didn't care about any threat at all. Boom! Not long after, a group of dazzling escape lights rushed over from a distance. The leader was a white-haired man in a black robe. Before he arrived, his cold and indifferent voice sounded, "What happened here?" The third supreme elder. Tong Qianxiu was overjoyed and quickly told what happened just now. Swish! The next moment, the black-robed, white-haired man and his party all looked at Lin Sun in unison, and the atmosphere suddenly became extremely depressed. "Friend, why are you in such a hurry to go to the eighth heaven?" The black-robed, white-haired man asked coldly. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little helpless. Was he too restrained that anyone dared to question him like this? "Is the formation plate in your hands?" Lin Sun asked directly. "Presumptuous. It's the third supreme elder who is asking you a question. You just need to answer." Beside the black-robed, white-haired man, a young man in a purple robe shouted. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and sighed softly. "I didn't want to embarrass you, but now it seems that I'm too easy to talk to. Haha, who do you think you are?" And the young man in a purple robe laughed as if he had heard a big joke, but before he finished his words, his body turned into ashes with a bang and scattered in the void. The audience was horrified. From the beginning to the end, no one saw how Lin Sun attacked. "Young master!" A burst of exclamations sounded, and they were all caught off guard by this scene. The black-robed, white-haired man was even more furious. His beard and hair flew in the air, and he shouted, "How dare you kill my grandson? I won't spare you." Boom! The third supreme elder of the Tong clan, who had reached the peak of Nirvana realm, waved his hand, and a fierce divine rainbow broke through the sky, overshadowing the world. But Lin Sun didn't even look at it. Lin Sun grabbed in the air, "Come here." Bang! That fierce divine rainbow that soared through the sky collapsed inch by inch. Then, the figure of the white-haired man in a black robe rolled in front of Lin Sun like a bug pinched by a big hand, and he was suppressed to the point that he couldn't even raise his head. The audience was silent. All the strong practitioners of the Tong clan nearby were stunned, as if struck by lightning. It was just a face-to-face confrontation, but the third supreme elder, who was the strongest in their clan, was suppressed like this. This scared them out of their wits and scared them silly. "I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, senior." The white-haired man in a black robe shouted in panic and shivered on the ground. Before, he was regarded as the savior of the strong practitioners of the Tong clan, and he came aggressively, but now he was like a panicked dog, begging for mercy. "Where is the formation plate?" Lin Sun asked. The white-haired man in a black robe quickly took out a bronze formation plate from his arms and handed it to Lin Sun with both hands. "Senior, please have a look." Lin Sun took the formation plate in his hand and looked at it for a while. "Who do you think is to blame for today's humiliation?" The white-haired man in a black robe said in a trembling voice, "It's all my fault. Please forgive me, senior." "Don't forgive him." Suddenly, an angry voice sounded not far away. Lin Sun looked up and saw a familiar face. It was Tantai Feng. After many years, Tantai Feng had also set foot on the immortal road and possessed the cultivation of the early stage of longevity realm. It could be imagined how extraordinary his talent was. But at this moment, his hair was disheveled, his clothes were torn, and he was wounded. His eyes were bloodshot, full of anger and hatred. "Tantai Feng, you, The remaining evil of the Tantai clan finally show up. Tong Chinsu shouted, but he immediately realized that the situation was not right. The third Supreme Elder was still kneeling on the ground. How could he care about Tantai Feng at this time? I didn't expect to see you again at this time. Lin Sun sighed slightly. He felt a little complicated in his heart. He didn't intend to meet Tantai Feng at first. Tantai Feng knelt down and kowtowed with his forehead. He said in a sad and hoarse voice, "Brother Lin, I made a mistake in the past, but I also paid a heavy price for it. Just last night, the Tantai clan was invaded by the enemy. All the clansmen were slaughtered. Only I was lucky enough to survive." His voice was filled with endless grief, indignation, and bitterness. He took a deep breath and said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope that for the sake of our friendship in the past, can you help me kill the old bastard kneeling in front of you? He killed all my relatives, and even my innocent daughter was cruelly killed by him." At the end of his words, his voice seemed to be squeezed out of his teeth, and his cheeks were distorted ferociously. All the clansmen of the Tong clan present changed their faces. They never thought that Tantai Feng and Lin Sun were old acquaintances. Lin Sun was silent for a while. He didn't expect that the Tantai clan had already suffered a calamity last night, but it was reasonable to think about it. These strong men of the Tong clan dared to rob the ancient formation in the city so openly. Obviously, they had already known the news that the Tantai clan was in trouble. "Brother Lin, I beg you, I beg you." Tantai Feng kept kowtowing and begging. Bang! In front of Lin Sun, the body of the white-haired man in a black robe who had been suppressed on the ground burst into pieces and dissipated into ashes. This scene of death stimulated the other strong men of the Tong clan present to tremble. Run! They realized that something was wrong and wanted to escape at the first time. But as Lin Sun waved his sleeve, their bodies seemed to be incinerated in an instant, turning into ashes scattered in the field. No one survived. When seeing this scene, Tantai Feng, who was kneeling on the ground, couldn't help but be stunned. After a while, he kowtowed excitedly and said, "Thank you, Brother Lin. Thank you." He cried bitterly and was so excited that he lost control of his emotions. Overnight, all his relatives and friends were slaughtered, which made him suffer too much and made his state of mind a little unstable. "I never thought that your Tantai clan would choose to be my enemy in order to cling to the Ten Clan War Alliance." Lin Sun looked calm. "To tell the truth, I am not angry, only disappointed. From now on, the friendship between you and me is over." After that, he turned and walked into the transmission ancient formation. Brother Lin. Tantai Feng lost his soul and felt inexplicably sad in his heart. Lin Sun didn't look back. Buzz, with a burst of space ripples, the ancient formation produced a thunderous roar. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun's tall figure disappeared in the white space. In the distance of the transmission ancient formation, only Tantai Feng knelt there with disheveled hair and empty eyes for him. It seemed that he had lost everything overnight. On this day, the news of the destruction of the Tantai clan spread to the sky-bearing city, causing a great uproar. The news quickly spread to other places in the seventh heaven, causing all kinds of discussions. And Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms had successfully arrived in the 8th heaven. Chapter 3048. The 8th heaven, Zheojiang Divine Region. This is one of the divine regions controlled by the Dongwang clan, one of the 10 immortal giants. Swish! The void fluctuated, and Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. Zheojiang Divine Region. I should be able to find some core members of the Dongwang clan from here. Lin Sun's eyes flashed with contemplation. Different from the other heavens, the 8th heaven has an ancient and primitive appearance. There are mountains and rivers everywhere, and no one can be seen. In the 8th heaven, there are a total of 33 divine regions, controlled by the 10 immortal giants. Other than the 10 immortal giants, there are many other forces in the 8th heaven, but almost all of them are vassals of the 10 immortal giants. Lin Sun has been in the 8th heaven for 3 days. The force closest to him is the Dongwang clan, one of the 10 immortal giants. However, because it's his first time entering the eighth heaven, Lin Sun still needs to gather some information. Swish! Lin Sun's figure flickered, heading straight towards the Zhejiang Divine Region. Blood Cloud City, the richest city in the Zhejiang Divine Region. A stronghold belonging to the Dongwang clan was stationed here. At this moment, in an ancient and majestic palace in the center of the city, a group of big shots gathered, looking at a skinny old man with gray hair sitting on the main seat. He is the old antique of the Dongwang clan, Dongwang Qiong. He has been in the Nirvana God realm for tens of thousands of years. Not long ago, he broke through to the transcendent realm. This time, I gathered everyone here because I have an important announcement. Dongwang Qiong spoke. His voice was hoarse and low, filled with supreme majesty. Everyone's heart trembled, and they listened attentively. This seat will return to the clan today, and it's possible that I won't be back for a long time. In the future, the matters of the Zhejiang Divine Region will be handed over to you. Dongwang Qiong made a decision. Everyone was in an uproar, and a look of surprise appeared on their faces. Old ancestor, why? Someone couldn't help but ask. Dongwang Qiong was silent for a moment, then said, everyone must have heard that the shaman religion and Zen religion, as well as some eternal characters of the ninth heaven, have been killed in front of the Yuan sect, right? Everyone's eyes narrowed, and their hearts trembled. The Yuan sect wasn't annihilated. Instead, it miraculously became the final winner. This is something that no one expected. Also, our Dongwang clan has an irreconcilable grudge with the Yuan sect. In such a situation, it's hard to guarantee that we wouldn't be attacked by the Yuan sect. Dongwang Qiong took a deep breath and said with determination, that's why I have to leave. If there's any danger, I can help the clan. The atmosphere was heavy and depressing. Someone couldn't help but ask, if the power of the Yuan sect really comes to the eighth heaven, will the eternal gods of the ninth heaven just sit back and watch? Dongwang Qiong shook his head. Hard to say. In truth, he was well aware that the world was no longer the same as it had been in the past. In the past, the 10 immortal lords had been able to use the name of the eternal gods without fear of the origin sect. But now, those eternal gods might not even be able to take care of themselves. The reason was very simple. Under the threat of the great silence fateless tribulation, even those eternal realm existences felt insecure, so who would have the mood to care about other things? That night, Dongwang Qiong quietly left Blood Cloud City alone. Dongwang Qiong. Just as Dongwang Qiong's figure teleported outside Blood Cloud City, he felt his body become sluggish, and he couldn't move anymore. His figure was instantly forced out of the void. Immediately after, a voice sounded in his ears, causing his expression to change drastically. Who is it? Take me to your clan, and I can spare your life. The voice sounded again, but it was faint, making Dongwang Qiong unable to lock the specific location. This made his heart sink again. His many years of experience allowed him to instantly distinguish that the enemy's strength is at least above his own. May I ask who you are, friend? Can you show yourself? Dongwang Qiong took a deep breath and said slowly, my patience is limited. If you don't agree within 3 breaths, you will bear the consequences. The voice sounded calm and indifferent, then immediately fell into silence. 3 breaths. Dongwang Qiong's pupils suddenly shrank, his hair stood on end, and his hair stood on end. He was shocked and angry to the extreme. I agree. At the moment when the 3 breaths were about to end, Dongwang Qiong almost subconsciously made a decision. Let's go. That voice sounded again. After that, Dongwang Qiong's vision blurred as a tall and handsome figure appeared in front of him. He was clad in moon-white robes, and his eyes were as deep as the abyss. His aura was calm and transcendent. Lin Sun, Dongwang Qiong involuntarily called out. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the fellow who threatened him was actually the traitor whom the Dongwang clan hated to the bone. Don't be surprised. I'm also surprised to see you here. Lin Sun calmly smiled. Thinking back to the time when he and his senior sister Junhuan went to the Yuan sect for the training, they met Dongwang Qiong, Qi Tingzi, Zhongli Chong, and the other old freaks from the 10 immortal realms. In fact, Jun Huan had even confronted them before. But back then, Lin Sun was only at the Ju Ing Emperor Ancestor realm, while Dongwang Xiong was already at the peak of the Nirvana God realm. Stabilizing his state of mind, Dongwang Xiong calmed himself down. Lin Sun, this isn't the Yuan sect. This is the 8th heaven. Aren't you afraid of trouble? He was too shocked. He didn't expect that Lin Sun would actually appear in the 8th heaven. Furthermore, it was obvious that Lin Sun was planning to take revenge on the Dongwang clan. Trouble? Lin Sun laughed. A few years ago, the combined forces of the 10 Clan War Alliance were almost annihilated. Now, which one of the 10 immortal realms isn't in a difficult situation? Dongwang Xiong's face darkened. The 8th heaven is connected to the 9th heaven. Even if you don't put us in your eyes, aren't you afraid of the Eternal God Clan's revenge? Don't forget, the one the Eternal God Clan wants to kill the most is you. Lin Sun disapprovingly said, Is that so? Then I'll see if the Eternal God Clan dares to interfere when I destroy your Dongwang clan. Dongwang, Xiong's heart sank. Lead the way, Lin Sun said. This old man also wants to see how miserable your death will be. Dongwang Xiong coldly snorted. Swish! The void fluctuated. Dongwang Xiong led the way, while Lin Sun followed behind. To a transcendent realm expert, they could traverse the void in an instant, traversing thousands of mountains and rivers. Dongwang Xiong teleported with Lin Sun for close to 6 hours, traversing countless cities, mountains, and rivers as they headed north. Along the way, Dongwang Xiong was very cooperative, as if he had given up all resistance. After flying for 10 hours, Lin Sun suddenly said, Your Dongwang clan should have already made preparations, right? Dongwang Xiong's expression froze. Vice Pavilion Lord Lin, what do you mean? Lin Sun stopped and stared into Dongwang Xiong's eyes. Why do you think I asked you to lead the way? Dongwang Xiong frowned. Why? Lin Sun said seriously, I want you to tell your clan that I, Lin Sun, am here. Dongwang Xiong was stunned. And then, Lin Sun smiled. And then, I want you to make preparations. When I send you on your way, your clan will be able to move together. After saying that, he pondered. It's already been 10 hours. If your Dongwang clan's reaction is faster, you should be able to summon all the major figures back to your clan, right? Dongwang Xiong's mind buzzed, as if he was struck by lightning. He finally understood Lin Sun's intention. Lin Sun was actually planning to wipe out his entire clan. In an instant, a chill ran down his spine as his countenance changed. Lin Sun patted his shoulder. Don't worry. Every debt has a debtor. I, Lin, have never killed the innocent. I only want to kill the mastermind. As for the innocent members of your clan, I will naturally spare them. You. Dongwang Xiong was both shocked and enraged. Lin Sun stretched out his right hand and grabbed Dongwang Xiong's neck, while his left hand slapped the top of Dongwang Xiong's head. Bang! Dongwang Xiong's head exploded, and his primordial spirit was pulled out by Lin Sun. Bang! Another explosion rang out, and Dongwang Xiong's body was reduced to ashes. Lin Sun stared at Dongwang Xiong's primordial spirit. Dongwang Xiong's primordial spirit was trembling in fear. He didn't expect Lin Sun to act so decisively, directly crippling his body. Before he could react, Lin Sun ruthlessly punched Dongwang Xiong's primordial spirit in the stomach. Pooh! Dongwang Xiong's primordial spirit opened his mouth and spat out a golden bead, which Lin Sun grabbed. After sizing it up, Lin Sun asked, Before this, you used this bead to send a message to your clan, right? The bead surged with an obscure aura of order. When Lin Sun's divine sense entered it, he discovered that there was a mysterious small world within the bead. At the end of the small world, there was a mysterious source of order aura. Clearly, the source of order energy should be located in the territory of the Dongwang clan. Dongwang Xiong borrowed the power of order contained in this pearl to silently communicate with the Dongwang clan, using this method to secretly transmit news to the Dongwang clan. In an instant, Dongwang Xiong's primordial spirit turned ashen, and he said in a daze, So, You already knew, Lin Sun said. Before I came to the eighth heaven, I specially researched the information of your Dongwon clan. I know that the guardian order of your Dongwon clan is a rare heaven-ranked order. Its power is related to the Tao of space. Pausing for a moment, he stared at the golden pearl in his hand and continued. There's also a record in the information that your Dongwon clan has a secret treasure named Seamless Spirit Pearl. It can transmit messages stealthily and stealthily. Most probably this should be it. As expected, you came prepared. Dong Wang Qiong's expression paled. He gritted his teeth and said, "But so what if you know? My clan has already made preparations in advance. Even if you kill your way there, you will die without a doubt." "You are wrong." Lin Sun shook his head. "I just want to take this opportunity to see if your Dongwon clan can invite the great characters of the ninth heaven to help you. This will determine whether I will go to your clan or not." You are so shrewd." Dong Wang Qiong's primordial spirit's eyes widened. Only now did he understand Lin Sun's intentions. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated in 100 battles. If you don't know anything, you will only act rashly. Speaking of this, Lin Sun suddenly thought of something. "Oh yes, before you die, I have to correct a mistake of yours." "What mistake?" Dong Wang Qiong asked subconsciously. Lin Sun smiled and said, "I am now the Pavilion Master Yuan Qing. You should have called me Pavilion Master Lin." Dong Wang Qiong was stunned. Bang! In the next moment, his primordial spirit turned into powder in Lin Sun's palm. "Tonight, let's take a break." Chapter 3049, Longyue Divine Mountain, the place where the Dong Wang clan resided. It was said that within 100,000 miles of this mountain, it contained the origin Tao veins from the birth of chaos. It was the most blessed land in the eighth heaven. For ordinary cultivators, cultivating here for a day was equivalent to cultivating for 100 days in the outside world. From afar, Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the Longyue Divine Mountain that was shrouded in the night sky. Such a blessed land was comparable to the Yuan realm. If one cultivated here from a young age, even the stupidest person would be able to develop spirituality and wisdom. The night grew darker and darker. Lin Sun casually sat on the ground, took out his wine gourd, and drank alone, waiting quietly. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Longyue Divine Mountain was oppressive. The clan hall was brightly lit. Dong Wang Juhui sat on the central seat, his expression flickering under the light. On both sides of the hall, the Dongwon clan's important figures were waiting anxiously. Very quickly, a tall and thin figure appeared out of thin air in the hall, instantly attracting the attention of everyone present. Dongwon Juhui stood up and said, "Old ancestor, how is it?" The tall and thin figure was dressed in a red robe. He looked like a young man with a pair of narrow and sharp eyes. He was a transcendent realm, great perfection existence in the Dongwon clan, called Dongwon Ko. However, his expression was gloomy as he said, "The ninth heaven sent a letter. The Eternal God Clan's Yang clan leader has already ordered that no clansmen are allowed to go out 3 days ago." All of a sudden, Dongwon Juhui was stunned, and his heart sank. The Eternal God Clan Yang clan was the Dongwon clan's backer, but now, the Yang clan no longer cared about their lives. The expressions of the other important figures present changed, and they were all in a daze. How could this be? The dignified Eternal God clan didn't dare to send anyone to deal with Lin Sun. "Old ancestor, what's going on? Why did the Eternal God Clan Yang clan choose to stand by and watch?" Someone asked in confusion. Dong Wang Ku's expression was gloomy. "I can guess the reason. It should be related to the Great Silence lifeless disaster. If I'm not wrong, the eternal realm existences in the Yang clan have probably already started preparing to leave the eternal world and head to the Kunlun ruins. Under such circumstances, they naturally wouldn't care about the survival of our Dongwon clan." The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive to the point it was suffocating. After a short while, Dongwon Juhui took a deep breath while a wisp of a resolute expression suffused his eyes. He said, "Everyone, from this moment onward, will act according to the plan we discussed earlier. Then he turned to one person in the hall. Grand Elder, go contact the other undying giants. Tell them, if the lips are gone, the teeth are cold. If we are finished, they won't be able to escape either. If they want to resolve this disaster, they should send all their forces to support us. Yes. Great Elder Dongwang Xiao accepted the order and left. Second Elder, go and gather the transcendent realm figures in the clan. Let them all enter the 9-layer killing array and be on standby. Yes. Third Elder, go and gather everyone in the clan. Place them in the clan's treasure, mountain, and country painting. Yes. Fourth Elder, go and control the clan's order power with the 5th and 6th Elders. Yes. Seventh Elder, go to the ancestral altar and pass down the decree. In the name of the Dongwang clan, gather all the forces under our clan's command to support us. Within a day, I want all of them to gather in front of the mountain gate. Yes. Eighth Elder, spread the news to the outside world. Tell them that the Yuan school has invaded the 8th heaven, and that the Deputy Pavilion Master Lin Sun has revealed himself. Lin Sun has appeared. Yes. As orders were passed down one after another, Dongwang Juhui's heart calmed down. At this moment, the elders had all left, leaving only him and Dongwang Ku. Dongwang Ku's eyes flickered. You're planning to gather all the 10 undying giants' forces in our clan and fight against Lin Sun? Dongwang Juhui sighed. Other than this, is there any other way? In the past, our 10-clan battle alliance suffered heavy casualties in the 6th heaven. A group of transcendent realm great perfection experts were slaughtered. Even in the Wang clan, there are only 3 transcendent realm great perfection experts left. The Fu clan only has 1 transcendent realm great perfection expert, Fu Chaolon. After a pause, he continued, currently, the 10 undying giants don't even have 20 transcendent realm great perfection experts. If they don't gather together, Lin Sun will definitely defeat them one by one. I believe the other undying giants will understand this logic. Dongwang Ku frowned and said, it's just Lin Sun. Is he really that scary? Dongwang Juhui said, of course, Lin Sun isn't scary. However, if he brings along the Yuan school's forces, things will be different. What I fear the most is the Yuan school's forces. Dongwang Ku nodded and said, currently, the clan still has 2 eternal realm avatars. If the clan is in a life-and-death situation, they can be used as a trump card. Dongwang Jue suddenly said, previously, the 13th Elder, Elder Dongwang Xiong, sent a message saying that only Lin Sun appeared. If he's really alone, things will be easier. Can we still contact 13th Elder? Asked Dongwang Ku. Dongwang Juhui shook his head. I promised to contact him every 15 minutes. However, 6 hours have already passed. I suspect that he might have already been killed by Lin Sun. Dongwang Ku squinted his eyes and said, if that's the case, we don't have much time to prepare. Dongwang Juhui's eyes flashed with a crazed coldness. We've already prepared everything. Now, let's see how capable he is. Under the same night sky, the number 1 undying giant, the Wang clan. Clan leader Wang Zhongtian looked at the news from the Dongwang clan with a gloomy expression. 2 old ancestors. How do you think this matter should be resolved? After a long time, Wang Zhongtian said in a deep voice. In the main hall, there were only him and the other 2 transcendent realm great perfection elders. One was called Wang Daochuan, and the other was called Wang Fuping. Clan leader, please make the decision. Wang Daochuan's expression was calm. He had the demeanor of an immortal, wearing a high hat and ancient clothes. After cultivating for countless years, he had already seen through life and death. Wang Fuping pondered deeply for a moment before he said, I feel that Dongwang Juhui is right. The 10 great eternal powerhouses must work together to resist the threat from the Yuan sect. Otherwise, I'm afraid Yuan's sect will destroy them one by one. Wang Zhongtian took a deep breath and said, not long ago, in the infinite star sea in front of Yuan's sect, the 5 eternal realm existences of the 9th heaven never returned. Their whereabouts are unknown, and there's no news from them. Song Xiongtu, the old ancestor of the Song family, was one of them. Under such circumstances, The Tsang family will no longer send any forces to help us. After a pause, he continued, the other undying giants should be in a similar situation to our Wang family. It's almost impossible for them to get any help from the ninth heaven. Wang Fuping said with a serious expression, Clan leader, both of us are clear about this. Please give the order. Seeing this, Wang Zhongtian no longer hesitated and said decisively, then, please take the clan's treasure Sword of Judgment to the Dongwang family. Wang Fuping and Wang Daochuan glanced at each other and stood up to accept the order. Clan leader, I'll leave the clan to you. Wang Fuping said. Wang Zhongtian nodded. Old ancestor, take the people and go. Zhongli clan's clan leader Zhongli Qing gritted his teeth and said, our clan is the closest to the Dongwang family. If the Dongwang family is in trouble, the next one will be us. Yes. Zhongli Bowen, who had a transcendent realm great perfection cultivation base, turned around and left. The Yuan sect and Zen sect suffered a crushing defeat. The ninth heaven can't even fend for themselves. Now, in the eighth heaven, if our 10 undying giants don't unite, we're destined to be in a state of disunity. Qi Clan's clan leader Qi Shuheng's voice was sonorous and powerful. Old ancestor, I'll have to trouble you to personally lead the forces of our clan. All right. Qi Liujia slowly got up and left with a calm expression. In this night, in addition to the Wang clan, Zhongli clan, and Qi clan, the Mu clan's clan leader Mu Songhai, the Qi clan's clan leader Qi Luoqin, the Jing clan's clan leader Jing Zhuan, the Zhu clan's clan leader Zhu Fatian, and the Zhong clan's clan leader Zhong Jinxia all made the same decision to send people to the Dongwang family. Only the Fu family didn't do so. The reason was simple. In the entire Fu family, only the clan leader Fu Chaolon was left. It was impossible for him to leave. Otherwise, the Fu family would be without a leader, in a moonlight God mountain, in front of an ancient teleportation array. Under the night sky, this ancient teleportation array would set off a rain of light every once in a while, followed by a group of figures walking out. These silhouettes were all great figures from other undying realms. The other undying giants also had such an ancient teleportation array. They were interconnected, allowing the other undying giants to teleport over in a short amount of time. Report. Wang Family Supreme Elder Wang Daochuan and Senior Wang Fuping have led a group of experts here. Report. Zhongli Family Supreme Elder Zhongli Bowen. Report. Mu Family Supreme Elder Mu Yongting. Report. One after another, reports resounded outside the Fu family's main hall. It made the clan leader Dongwang Jiuhui's mood improve again and again. Every time, he would personally welcome the great figures from the other undying giants into the palace, giving them the greatest respect. In the end, apart from the Fu family, the other 9 undying giants gathered together. Such a lineup made Dongwang Jiuhui's heart calm down, and all his previous worries and anxiety were swept away. At the same time, the Fu family's transcendent realm experts had already gathered and entered the 9-layer killing array. The Fu family's order power was also under the control of the 3 elders, accumulating power and waiting. The news of the vassal forces' reinforcements had also been sent out. Even the news of Lin Sun's appearance in the 8th heaven spread to all parts of the 8th heaven at the fastest speed, until the night faded and dawn arrived. Seeing the well-prepared scene, Dongwang Jiuhui couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He was even looking forward to Lin Sun's appearance. Chapter 3050. The sky was bright. The ink-like night faded from the sky above Longyue Divine Mountain, and the light of dawn sprinkled between the heavens and the earth. Woo, woo, woo. The sound of a horn came from a distant place. Immediately afterwards, groups of dazzling streaks of light whistled toward Longyue Divine Mountain from different directions like a meteor shower. Lin Sun, who had been waiting for a whole night, saw this scene and roughly guessed some clues in his heart. It seems that the 9th heaven doesn't intend to send anyone here. Lin Sun picked up the wine gourd and took a sip with a calm demeanor. He wasn't in a hurry to act. The current Dongwang clan was obviously mobilizing all their forces for defense. Lin Sun was looking forward to seeing how many forces the Dongwon clan could mobilize. The groups of cultivators coming from all directions quickly disappeared into the Longwe Divine Mountain. Reporting to the Patriarch, the masters of the 18 forces under our clan have led the transcendent realm experts of their respective clans to arrive. There are a total of 31 transcendent realm initial experts, 15 transcendent realm intermediate experts, and 4 transcendent realm late experts. Now, they have all been settled down and are only waiting for the Patriarch's orders. In the clan hall, someone came to report. Dong Wang Juhui nodded and said, "Let them rest. Once the battle breaks out, let them cooperate and act together." Yes, the person who reported took the order and left. Fellow Taoist, have you found out how many people the Yuan sect has dispatched this time? In the clan hall, an important figure asked. At this time, in the main hall, the old monsters from the 9 immortal giants gathered. There were 19 transcendent realm great perfection experts. It's not clear at the moment. Dong Wang Jihui said, according to the news transmitted by the 13th elder of our clan before the disaster, Lin Sun seems to be acting alone this time. His words startled everyone present. If it's just Lin Sun alone, the threat isn't too big. We only need to be wary of the eternal realm will in his hands. Wang Daochuan, who was wearing a high hat and ancient clothes, pondered, but we are worried that we will repeat the mistakes in the 6th heaven. Mentioning the fiasco that occurred in the 6th heaven a few years ago, everyone's heart trembled. At that time, Lin Sun also appeared alone. However, the 2 batches of forces sent by the 10 Clans War Alliance had been destroyed one after another. This made them believe that it must have been a big shot from the Yuan sect who had taken action. Otherwise, it was impossible for Lin Sun to achieve this by himself. In fact, not to mention what happened in the 6th heaven, they don't even know the true situation of the great battle that took place in the Myriad Star Sea a few days ago. The reason is that whether it is the forces of the 10 Clan Battle Alliance, the Witch religion, the Zen religion, or the 9th heaven, they were almost completely annihilated, and there was no news at all. As a result, they could only speculate about the details of the battle. Most of the time, speculation would deviate from the truth. For example, although these old freaks feared Lin Sun's battle prowess and were aware of the terror of his immortal supreme path, they did not know that Lin Sun could now kill the Dharma idol of an eternal realm expert with his own battle prowess. Therefore, at this moment, when talking about Lin Sun, who appeared in the 8th heaven and was likely to come to the Dongwon clan for revenge, they subconsciously believed that it was impossible for Lin Sun to come alone. It was very likely that he was accompanied by other big shots of the Yuan sect. The top priority is to find out the whereabouts of Lin Sun as soon as possible, as well as the power of the Yuan sect led by him. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. Wang Fuping said solemnly. Everyone nodded. Dong Wang Jihui was silent for a moment, then said, "Last night, we lost contact with the 13th elder of our clan. If my speculation is correct, Lin Sun is most likely already here." The hearts of everyone present shook. Immediately, Dong Wang Jihui smiled and said, "To tell you the truth, I can't wait for this kid to appear earlier, so that we don't have to waste time here." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Deputy Pavilion Master Lin Sun of the Yuan sect has killed his way to the 8th heaven. Such news began to spread at an astonishing speed in the 8th heaven, causing a sensation in the world. It was unknown how many people were in an uproar. Longyu Divine Mountain, where the Dongwon clan is located, also suddenly became the focus of the world. That year, the 10 Clan War Alliance suffered a crushing defeat in the 6th heaven. Almost all of them were annihilated. The 10 immortal giants' vitality was greatly damaged, and their foundation was shaken. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun actually killed his way to the 8th heaven. Is he planning to destroy the 10 immortal giants? It's said that this Lin Sun is the descendant of the Lord of Tongtian. One should know that the Lord of Tongtian was besieged by the 10 immortal giants. It's very likely that Lin Sun is here for revenge. He dares to attack the 10 immortal giants alone? Wrong. Lin Sun is a deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect. If he dares to come to the 8th heaven for revenge, he must have the help of the Yuan sect. The world is really going to be chaotic. A few days ago, the witch sect and the Zen sect were defeated by the Yuan sect. In less than a month, Lin Sun has killed his way to the 8th heaven. I'm afraid that another bloody storm is going to happen. The world was in turmoil. Lin Sun's appearance attracted the attention of the entire 8th heaven. Many powerhouses rushed to the Long Yu Divine Mountain from different directions, trying to understand the news as soon as possible. Lin Sun. This was the most sensational name in the world in the past 100 years. Especially in recent years, the whole world was covered by his light. He rose at the fastest speed and became a deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect's ancestral court. He possessed the legendary Immortal Supreme combat power. He slaughtered a group of peerless figures in the 10 demonic territory. He smashed the encirclement of the 10-clan war alliance in the 6th heaven. Each of these incidents, if any of them happened to someone else, would be enough to shake the world, let alone when it happened to him alone. This is a legend who rose in battle and slaughter, the youngest and most dazzling, transcendent realm existence in the world. Now that such a person appeared in the 8th heaven, who wouldn't pay attention to him? Time passed. A few days passed. In the territory near the Long Yu Divine Mountain, countless cultivators heard the news and came over. But to everyone's surprise, Lin Sun didn't appear. Even Dong Wang, Zhu Huwei, and the others were a little anxious. Lin Sun's appearance caused them to gather all their strength towards the Long Yu Divine Mountain. But as time passed, Lin Sun still didn't appear. This was like knowing that there was a knife hanging above their heads, but they didn't know when it would fall. It was extremely torturous. I think Lin Sun is afraid. The outside world was also discussing. He probably realized that his traces have been exposed. Moreover, the Long Yu Divine Mountain is filled with killing intent. Think about it. How could the Dongwang clan not be prepared? If it was me, I wouldn't dare to come and offend them. That's possible. Many people nodded. It wasn't that they didn't believe in Lin Sun's strength. It was because the Dongwang clan had been in the 8th heaven for countless years. How could such an immortal supreme be shaken so easily? Everyone, it seems like we came here for nothing. Lin Sun obviously realized that the situation isn't right and has already retreated. In a nearby area, an old man shook his head and sighed. Grandfather, is this the legendary peerless figure you were talking about? In my opinion, he's just a coward. A girl curled her lips, feeling disappointed. Don't talk nonsense. Beside the girl, a man berated. Even if Senior Lin Sun didn't come this time, he isn't someone we can slander. The girl was so scared that her entire body trembled. She stammered, but it's really disappointing. I thought he was very powerful. She turned her head and looked to the side. There was a young man sitting there, drinking wine. Hey, what do you think? The girl asked in a crisp voice. From the moment she arrived here, she saw this young man drinking wine. Even when he spoke to her, he was all smiles, as though he didn't have any temper at all. What did I say? The young man was startled. The girl said unhappily, Didn't you also come to watch the battle? That Lin Sun hasn't appeared yet. Aren't you disappointed at all? The young man smiled and stood up. He kept the wine gourd and said, Little sister, listen to my advice. It's better to leave this place as soon as possible. Battles are never good to watch. As he spoke, he walked straight into the distance. The girl mumbled, How old are you? You're already lecturing me like an old man. AI, wait a minute, what are you going to do? She couldn't help but feel surprised when she saw the young man walking in the direction of Longwe Divine Mountain. She was also worried. Wait, that's the territory of the Dongwang clan. If you get so close, you might be chased away. The young man waved his hand without turning his head. Thank you for the reminder. But the reason I came here this time was to find the Dongwang clan. Now it's about time. The girl frowned. This fellow is so strange. I wonder what he's talking about. Seeing Lin Sun approaching the Longyue Divine Mountain alone, the girl's grandfather seemed to have realized something. His expression instantly changed. Could it be him? At the same time, in the nearby territories, many gazes also noticed the figure of the young man. They couldn't help but have bewildered expressions. This person couldn't be. Many people who were discussing amongst themselves stopped talking as their attention was drawn by that tall figure. It was truly because the surroundings of Longwe Divine Mountain was empty and silent, and all the spectators had hidden far away. So when that tall figure walked step by step towards Longwe Divine Mountain, he seemed to be so striking. "Grandfather, you recognize that person?" the girl asked with surprise. Right at this moment, within her field of vision, the young man who'd advised her to leave with a smile earlier had suddenly soared into the sky. He placed his hands behind his back as he gazed at the distant Longwe Divine Mountain, and then he spoke indifferently. "We're the clansmen of the Dongwon clan." A voice that was like a thunderclap broke the silence of the heavens and the earth and resounded through the 9 heavens. The hearts of all the cultivators in the nearby areas shook. It really is him. He wouldn't be. The girl's beautiful eyes opened wide while her little face was covered in shock. "Lin Sun, I'll continue updating tonight."